of this skin up until December 31st. So the end of the year, that is it. So guys, go get it today. Right, it's style. Yeah, you know, it's picking up foot.
Better call the bet. Ain't playing at your best, then you will get left. If it don't involve money, then I don't accept. If it don't involve money, then I don't accept. Hold on, something like this.
Teams pop off at the start, and some teams we thought were going to pop off, 7, that didn't quite really hit the mark that we expected.
D-Savior. Yeah, just, you know, putting that one out there too. Some teams popped off for sure. I mean, Geek Fam, that's one team that I'm going to be looking at. We'll go into that a little bit later. And then there's some less desired teams, but you know what? Let's talk about some of the players. You can see, damn rude. I mean, 3,500 damage, and this team, Glitter, was just so aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 3 out of the top 4 from Geek Fam up here. I mean, to be fair, Tony K, phenomenal performance, especially from the 4th place overall team, still being up here as the best, or number 3 in the damage. But I mean, Rude has the #1 highest damage on a first day performance so far. Geek Fam has been incredible, and you can also see that reflected here in their grenade use. One, obviously significantly higher than every other squad up here, but that's just going to speak to their aggression. It's speaking to their ability to loot and use utility incredibly well. And then that ended up being reflected in obviously their first place placement on the day, ahead of everybody else. I mean, you've got 3 out of the 4 in the top 4, most nades used, 7. This is an incredible performance for day number 1.
It is an incredible performance, and it's even more incredible because of what GK was able to do at 1.2. At one point, they had, I think it was a 28-point lead, and then Geek Fam decided to just obliterate all of that and say, you know what, we're actually here. We're going to be trying to get some chicken ears. We're going to be trying to get those high placement besides just the high eliminations that we're getting. And when I say high eliminations, I mean Geek Fam was going in. Right now, they have 51 eliminations, and when you compare it to GK Esports only sitting at 29. So a completely different team than what I've seen before, and I'm really enjoying to see if they're going to be continuing the aggressiveness, and then some of the other teams, hopefully they'll be able to step it up. I mean, GK, they didn't end the day so well, Glitter. They ended up with the 9th place finish and only 1 elimination on one of those games, and then the next one was a 12th place finish with 1 elimination. I'm pretty sure they're going to be looking to change that.
Yeah, and we talk about that too, right? We talk about how momentum plays a factor into that, and on the flip side, teams that did close out the day really well. Another one that we'll probably be talking about is going to be T2K, Trade to Kill. I mean, they had multiple 2nd place finishes. We saw the interview at the top of the show with T2K as well, and they were just really consistent across the board, with no chicken dinners, still in the top 3 at the end of the day. And we talk about that a lot, Jukes. I heard you gasping before with excitement for what you were watching. Consistency is so important.
Oh, it's so huge. Every single time I see one of them squad wipes, you know, I get so pumped up. And not to mention the first, yesterday, the first play that we saw, Iron Sight Car 98 from across the map. That was so dang sick. Let's take a look at the rankings. And you know what? And the reason why I was gasping a little bit earlier, this is where we all stand right now. It's crazy to see that grenade usage ended up being the same stats as we see here on the overall rankings. Geek Fam, most nades used, Geekay 2nd, and we see them here in 1st and 2nd place here, 7.
Yeah, these teams have just been battling it out, and I mean, at one point we had a 40-point gap between 2nd place and 3rd place, so I'm glad to see that that has kind of narrowed down a little bit more. Glitter mentioned it perfectly. T2K, they have been super consistent. FaZe Clan, though, this was a team that they didn't really perform that well at the start of the day. They finished on a great note by getting that chicken dinner. We also saw 4 Angry Men. And then the teams that I was calling out earlier, I mean, D Savior, a lot of people expected this team to be at least top 3 at the end of day 1. Right now, they're currently in 15th place with 19 points. And Glitter, they better wake up because those teams at the top are looking to get all the points.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at those bottom squads. They're the only ones with the single-digit eliminations. That's not what they want, because now we're looking at the average eliminations. Ooh. And Geek Fam literally has an average in what Xavier has in total.
Aggressiveness, right?
Ouch.
That's what we're talking about. And the damage that they're being able to output, even when they didn't have a great performance in regards to placement, they were still able to come out with those eliminations. And I think that's definitely what played out a big difference between these two teams. With GK, I mentioned it earlier too. I'm really intrigued to see what kind of team we're going to be getting here as we do look at the top Erangel performance. You can see Geek Fan, I mean, I'm not surprised to see them there. FaZe Clan, I am a little bit surprised to see them there as, you know what, I'll tell you why later. And then IHC, 16 ranking points, 21 elimination points, and GK. With the thing with GK, I have to tell you guys this real quick, is that they were too passive at times, and I'm hoping that they try to be a little bit more aggressive today and not just go for placement points.
I like it. I agree.
Can't go for placement points. You got to be able to go for both. You got to go for broke here. These is today's matches. This is the same good old cycle that we've seen multiple times in a row. But I think that's the championship formula here. You know, is that no matter what situation you're in, what zone you get, you got to put up some points. You know, get those 8 points and say, hey, you know what? There's no chance we're going to get first place here, but let's just try to put something on the board. And then when you do get that zone, you can't just get a chicken dinner. You got to get that chicken dinner with like 15, 20 eliminations. That's what really sets that first place mark. And man, we saw Geek Fan, they did exactly that strategy yesterday, Seth.
They did, and it wasn't even just the chicken dinners. It was like the 3rd place finish. When they ended up in 3rd place, they ended up with 12 eliminations. We saw them being able to get more points than the teams that were actually winning the games, and I think that's currently why they're at the top.
Well, you know what? Speaking of teams at the top, I got 2 of the top best analysts in the game right next to me, and these are their teams to watch here going into match number 1. So I see you got some interesting picks there, Glitter, so why don't you break down your picks for us?
Okay, I mean, 7, we obviously agree on 4 Angry Men. I don't know your reasoning here, but for me, I mean, they started off the day fantastically. I think everybody had higher expectations of them, and it was just like what started to be a steady downfall that just kind of plummeted into not finishing above a double-digit placement after that. And I want to see them bounce back here today. I already talked about Time to Kill a little bit, how insanely consistent they were. 3 second-place finishes out of the 6 matches, and I want to see if they can finally close out a chicken. And then Geek Fam. We've seen teams at the top fall off. I want to see if they can continue this dominating performance or if it was a flash in the pan.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that for them too, because now with 4 Angry Men, this is my reasoning, okay? And the only reason why I picked them before this Erangel, yes, they won the first Erangel, but they just kept getting into weird engagements right off the bat in every single Erangel. I'm even looking forward to seeing how they're going to be able to adjust to that. Are they going to be getting any of their players knocked super early on, or have they been able to go back, watch that tape, and maybe work something out that doesn't happen again? Now with Game Lord, they were steady in a way, and I know Imperium is going to love this that I'm talking about them. They were steady in a way that they are able to put themselves into position to actually strike at the end. They finished off the day with 2 very strong games. I'm trying to see if they're going to continue with that momentum, because if they can, I will like to see them at least top 5. And then last and not least, you Savior. You heard me talking about it earlier. Please, wake up. You can't do this.
Well, you know what? They need to wake up, and all of you watching need to wake up, because it's time for match number 1. Let's take it on over to our casters, Zute and Esproxy.
Thank you, Hot Jukes. We are back with day number 2 of week number 3. And if it goes to show, you know, day number 1 was great. Day number 2 is just going to get better. And 3 and 4, well, it just goes up from there, Esproxy.
I mean, yesterday was a statement and a half that we saw from some of these teams. We saw a very explosive start from the likes of 4AM, as we mentioned, but as we continued, I mean, it was Geek Fam, it was GK Esports bringing in that consistency, and that's going to be the key today. I mean, we mentioned Xavier, we mentioned BESIKTAS. I mean, with one of the craziest clutches that we've seen, not only as an individual with that 1v4 against Train to Kill, but then also in that 2v3 right at the end of Miramar. I mean, come on, they just brought that synergy, and if they can do that again today, then we might have a whole different storyline to follow.
So many different storylines already developing through the first day. The one I'm looking out for in particular, though, is the Geek Fam team, right? Geek Fam, we saw them pretty much play the same style all 6 matches, and they absolutely crushed it. It was the same consistency. They didn't change things up game from game. And even though in the last game, you know, they falter a little bit, you know, going out early with only 3 eliminations, they stuck true to their playstyle. So that's what I really like to see coming into today, though. I want to see if they're going to stick with that and if it's going to keep working for them.
I mean, we mentioned a little bit off camera, you know, we were talking about those damage numbers briefly, and I mean, as a team, Geek Fam brought in 11.2 thousand damage, whereas second best,
Wow.
we're talking about a 6.7 thousand damage. That is insane, but it makes sense when you think about the eliminations they were bringing in, when you think about how aggressive they were playing. Yeah, their placements don't really match that, but I mean, ultimately, we mentioned it before, even if Geek Fam goes down, at the very least, they take out a couple names with them back into the lobby, and that just thins out the competition, doesn't really give anyone a shot when Geek Fam just rolls on up and says, well, your territory is ours now.
Yeah, it was just so many eliminations, right? At one point in the tournament, we saw another team had 2 chicken dinners and Geek Fam with only 1, but they were actually in the lead. And that was only with like a few games, right? If this was over the span of like multiple games, one team having more chicken dinners and less points, that's understandable. But only in a couple of games, a team with an extra chicken dinner had less overall points. That just means the elimination points were really starting to stack up for the Geek Fam team.
I'm loving it, but there's also just so many opportunities for some of the other teams to bring on in. I mean, Vivo Keyd, you know, we started off with that Erangel match. They drove straight into the Valley of Doom against Furious Gaming, but then they started picking up some of the pacing. I mean, I just go back to that match on Erangel with that horrible zone, that horrible terrain, and yet they were still trying to stick it out. They were still trying to stay alive, moving on in. Furious Gaming literally falling off the ridgeline with Game Lords. I mean, these teams have had to go against some tough terrain, and we had some very interesting zones yesterday. But now the question is, are we going to see a little bit more of that today, or are some of the teams that are sitting towards that bottom of the leaderboard going to pick up the pacing starting today?
You mentioned sticking alive or becoming alive, right? One team that really started to show up towards the later half of the first day was IHC. Right?
Ooh.
When they subbed in Ziol, it was like complete 180 change. Like, I'm looking at the stats right now. Okay, round 1, right? They go out in 13th place, 0 elimination. Round 2, they do better, but not in the form that IHC probably wants, right? They got 3rd place with only 1 elimination. They were down to 1 player very early on, and he got lucky making it in. Right afterwards, 14th place with only 3 eliminations. And then I think it was game 4. Game 4, they made the change. Game 4, they brought in Ziol instantly. 2nd place finish, 9 eliminations. 10th place finish, not that good, but 5 eliminations. We saw them go down fighting. And then the very last match of the day, 6th place finish, not too bad, not too shabby. 12 eliminations. That is a stark difference. Now, I'm pretty sure they're going to start off today with Ziol. So currently IHC in 5th place overall. That's another team that could really stir up the pot and change things up.
And I mean, IHC was a team that we were all rooting for. We were all waiting for that starting movement from them, especially with that beginning little bit of a phase between 4 Angry Men and themselves on Erangel with those Car 98 shots. I mean, IHC all the way, and then we just didn't see that. But today, it's a whole new day. They've shaked everything off from yesterday, and now they need to bring the action.
Yeah, so many teams actually need to start bringing the action right now. Xavier in particular, that's one team that the analyst desk mentioned that they're keeping an eye on. And for me, it's honestly between Geek Fam, right? I want to see if they're going to be able to pull off what they did on day 1 in similar fashion and style. And if IHC is going to continue that run back that they started to make towards the later half of yesterday.
It's going to be the question here, but that zone, once again, it just seems like Erangel is the southern map of the day. We keep going towards this direction one way or another, at least this time, starting off from that eastern side. So some pretty good opportunities for the likes of, I'm thinking of BESIKTAS, if they wanted to go to that mansion or Yasnaya Poliana situation again. FaZe, if they wanted to head through to Milta Power, well, easy pick'ems for them. But then the question comes through, what have we been seeing on the military base island? We know IHC love that Novo position. 4 AM generally seem to have been joining them on the military base island, but now it looks like a straight drop for 4 Angry Men over towards military base.
Yeah. Yesterday, 4 AM also got bridge camped, right? Leaving military base when the zone was very far up north. And they got bridge camped by Geek Fam, no less. Geek Fam, a team that likes playing, from the edge. Makes sense why Geek Fam didn't rotate in. We do have the first circle. It's going to be on the southeastern side. A bit of military base in the mix. And this is a little bit different of a drop. Now, these two teams, Falcons and TEM Entertainment, they've been sharing Yasnaya, but it's usually, we take the west side, you take the east side. However, this time around, looks like TEM Entertainment has stretched a little bit into the Falcons territory. Not a full-blown engagement by any means, but seems like TEM Entertainment is starting to back up, maybe assert some quick dominance, apply some pressure, but they don't really want to engage into a fight either.
It's interesting to see that, like, we're on day number 2, we've already had all of these teams going up ahead against each other, at least in 3 iterations of Erangel, yet we're still seeing, like, mini versions of hot drops. We're still seeing teams dropping on a very similar locations, getting those loots up and jumping into those earlier engagements, which it's unlikely that we would see that still, but yet here they are still proving a point. So Falcons and TEM Entertainment will be interesting to see if they do go head-to-head, if we will see that earlier engagement. We saw a few delayed engagements, if I could call it that, yesterday. Some of the teams taking a little bit longer to make their plays and either get out of the situation or get those final engagements. So hopefully today we see a little bit more of a quicker pace from these teams.
Also, stop crashing into things when you're driving. Yesterday it was the military zone where we saw a car make it past the bridge, which was great, and then he crashed into the only tree in his way, and both players got eliminated. Right? So,
yeah.
Oh, more crashing. Luckily for these guys,
it's you, Zute. You're doing it to them on purpose.
For them, they're not gonna, be shot at by an entire team of. It was IHC actually, bridge camping. So crashing into things right now, not too punishing. But later on, gotta watch out for where you're driving, especially if you're the driver. But it's tough sometimes, right? Because when you're driving in the vehicle, you're able to third-person peek, meaning you could rotate your camera around while driving in a certain direction without affecting which way you drive. And when you're getting shot at, of course you want to see who's shooting you and from where, so you get a better idea of what's going on. But then that means you're not keeping your eyes on the road, and it becomes a deadly mistake sometimes.
That's where the teamwork has to come in. You have to have your spotter, you have to have your driver. Second, if you're in that passenger seat, your job is to spot out who's shooting at you. But
yeah, it's like, keep your eyes on the road. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we don't care about what's happening on the music. Your job is to see who's shooting at us. That is the only job you have as a passenger. But hey, at least we'll see those teams maybe stepping it up. If not, Zute is coming after you. You heard it here first. But in terms of the 2 spots that we have on the map right now, at least with the early possible engagements, it's just Yasnaya Poliana that has that Falcons and TEM Entertainment action, and it was GK Esports and Rejects over towards Rozhok, but Rejects has already disengaged and they've moved up a little bit closer towards Ruin. So I'm already liking that we're seeing that early pacing where they're like, look, it's not really worth it for us. Especially if you don't have loot, man. You can't go into a fight if you're like on the weapon disadvantage. Just back on out and try again a little bit later.
Yeah. It looks like TEM Entertainment did back off. They did shift back to the western side of Yasnaya to continue looting. So maybe the initial drop was just to, apply some pressure, which I was saying earlier, but not really looking for any sort of engagement. Fights might start breaking out between those two teams, though, as the matches go on, when one team becomes a little more desperate for points, or when one team, start feeling a little bit more confident, as in, hey, we might as well go for it. Looking at the map, we're about 5 minutes in. A couple of teams have already started rotating in near the center of the circle. Now, this first zone is actually, I would say, smaller than usual, right? Because a good portion of it, I'd say like 20 to 30%, is the military base area. And with the circle like this, I think everybody's pretty much counting out military base. So that eliminates the military base plus the water that is in play. So immediately, first circle, a lot less, viable playing territory.
And what's even worse for the likes of, let's say, IHC or 4AM, when they want to take that eastern bridge rotation, well, surprise, surprise, that happens to be the center of zone. I mean, we have already 3 teams situated within that opposite end, such as Nongshim, RedForce. We've got Furious Gaming moving in. We've even got Genesis, DOGMA, GIDS that have moved in. FaZe moving down from Multa Power towards that bridge. I mean, it is stacked now. So for 4AM, they're going to make that trip on through. You can see right past Nongshim Red. Thankfully for them, it doesn't seem like Nongshim Red was quite ready for a little bit of that containment, but they will have a stock rotation to make immediately as soon as they reach the mainland.
Definitely agree. 4 a.m. Did make it past that bridge, didn't get camped. They find an open compound. Of course, they can't really get too further in because, as you were saying, many teams all set up around here. But luckily for 4 a.m., I think their biggest concern was getting bridge camped, right? Yesterday, they ended the last game going out to the Geek Fam team because they were bridge camped. It was quite a good fight, though, on the bridge. It went back and forth. 4 a.m. actually got the opening 2 knocks, but then Geek Fam held it down. And somehow, some way, Geek Fam, I mean, there's a reason why they have so many elimination points. They took that fight back from a 2v4 and eliminated the entirety of the 4 a.m. team. So 4 a.m. definitely breathing a sigh of relief. Their worst nightmare, the bridge camp, is not going to affect them on this first game.
Yeah, we don't want any of that PTSD to move on into today's games. 4 a.m., I mean, we talked about Geek Fam. The main factor for me for Geek Fam and why they've been so consistent, why they've been so successful, is that confidence, that bravado when they jump into an engagement. It's like they know exactly what plan they've discussed, they all know their roles, and they just execute it time in and time out to such perfection. You know, we talk about individual prowess, but then it has to be matched with, an equal amount of team synergy. And Geek Fam, for me right now, hopefully they keep it up because they are just hitting some beautiful PUBG Mobile action. And if they can continue that,
look at those damage
it's going to
numbers.
be tough. Oh, it's disgusting, actually.
That's after one day. At the Pmgc level. They're not pumping damage into chumps, right? This isn't your classic match where you can rack up like 2,000 to 3,000 in one game. Okay, they're racking up that much damage against the best teams in the world. That's a lot harder than playing classic matches. And I want to draw a comparison real quick between Geek Fam and, ooh, that's a nice shift. All the way up to the top of the forest area where the Pride Rock is in play, just right above prison. This is going to get interesting. But before things heat up, right, HVVP and Geek Fam, very similar playstyles, controlling the edge, fighting their way in, dominant in eliminations. It seems like, this style will get you in first place overall as long as you're executing it properly. And we saw with HVVP, you have one bad day trying to execute this style, which is quite difficult to pull off game after game. You quickly could drop down in the leaderboard. So we might see the same fate for Geek Fam just coming into day 2 even.
4 angry men right now on a car chase. They're chasing TEM Entertainment. GK is chasing them. Just running through shelter like an absolute madman, trying to get that rotation and trying to regroup. Thankfully, it looks like they will be able to, but it's going to come down to what TEM Entertainment will be able to do here. The line of sight looks pretty limited. So hopefully, 4 angry men should be able to move on into center. I mean, for the likes of FaZe, they literally just rotated off Milta Power, and now it might be an opportunity to rotate back.
Here's that Pride Rock position that I was talking about. Now, 4AM, we saw in game number 1 yesterday, they really prioritized these rotations. They even lost a player on rotation very early in the very first game of Erangel, but they ended up getting the chicken dinner because of it. So once again, second circle pops up. They really gun it for a central position, and we saw on the camera so many teams all around them taking shots at them, but it's a calculated risk, and hopefully it pays off for them. They are pretty much somewhat center, a little bit north of center, but they're at a strong position to work the rest of the map. So very good rotation by them. The Rejects team taking things a little bit slower this time around. Rejects also in the very first game yesterday did similar, mad dash rotations, but it ended up costing them like the entire team with 0 points. So it looks like they're going to play it slow now as the new game plan coming into day 2.
Yeah, polarizing performances from these teams, and I like what you said in terms of that comparison between Geek Fam and HVVP. Also for HVVP, I mean, having a bad day on the literal last day, the literal last opportunity that you have to put up points. I mean, you couldn't have talked about like worse timing.
Yeah.
It does happen. It does happen though. You are in a PMGC stage, and to keep up that level, even for Geek Fam, to keep up that level of aggression, that level of engagement, and having that higher success rate, it's unheard of. Over 4 days at a PMGC level.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see if they'll be able to do it. But oof, imagine if they do. Imagine if they do. I feel like there's a world record around the corner for them.
92 points after just 1 day. See what Geek Fam could do today. Speaking about Geek Fam, they are located on the southwest side, pretty much on the edge. The only team behind them is IHC. Now, IHC versus Geek Fam, that will be a very interesting fight if we do get to see it. Both teams very aggressive, and they like to take their 4v4s. You see right there on the southwest, IHC just now moving out of military base. Geek Fam edging in from the southwest as well. And the circle does pretty much pull off the eastern side. Milk to Power no longer in play. Shifts a little bit towards the west. Everybody should be very familiar with this terrain here. There's a lot of different ridges to play in. And of course, on the eastern side, it's all high ground going uphill. On the west, pretty much all flatlands with a few compounds with the bunkers of shelter coming into play.
Can you imagine if we have a shelter final zone? Like the chaos of all of these teams shuffling into shelter, into the different levels, now trying to find one another, that zone
All the
closing
different
on
bunkers. Which bunker do you want to take?
the different levels.
Uh-huh. If it does end around shelter, we're gonna see like a whole like pack of cars just blown up, crashing onto the different shelter bunker sites. It's gonna be like a parking garage almost.
It would be chaos. Imagine for the first game of the day, we have that sort of an ending. We've already had a few treats. I mean, I've never seen such a Western, Erangel zone before yesterday. Like such an even 50-50 split between main island and military base island. Once again, we're treated to the eastern side of things. And now potentially a finish on shelter. I mean, come on, what more do you want?
Also, 64 players still alive. We are almost 14 minutes in. Huge difference from day one. Day one, we saw like maybe 6-7 players go out by zone number 2 due to haphazard rotations, the nerves, the jitters. They didn't get their timings. Yeah, they didn't get their timings in right. They didn't, respect, the rotations out of other teams, thinking they could get away with things. Now this time around, we're 14 minutes in and not a single player has gone down. Teams are definitely playing way tighter and definitely, taking more precautions after day number 1. They see where they are in the leaderboards. They know what they need to do to keep up in the top, and they know what they need to do to try and rise up to the top.
I mean, it's crazy to think that we haven't dropped a single player. We haven't dropped a single team. We haven't dropped a single player. And again, I think it comes back to those early engagements, avoiding them as much as possible, making sure that they're quick on the trigger when it comes to that possible disengagement. And teams so far, they've been following suit with that, which is lovely to see. And this is what we've been missing out of the chaos of yesterday. But yet, Erangel might still prove to be a little chaotic depending on this next shift where we will be centering up. And, shelter is still in play. Still an opportunity.
It's the shelter zone that we were just talking about. So that pretty much, that south side still has a huge, the hills are still in play. A good chunk of it is still the high ground hills. And then you start heading down into the shelter area. We have 64 up. There's not going to be 64 up after this circle closes.
Not at all. Rotations hitting on in. GK making that appearance now, and it looks like they spotted out at least a lone member here of Genesis DOGMA, and this is what we were talking about yesterday. We saw this happen yesterday with Genesis. They didn't have that opportunity to save their teammate. Once again, not in a position to do that. Daybot, unfortunately, getting caught out, and for Genesis, there's no road to recovery from this.
I'm quite confused what Genesis DOGMA was doing there. Might have been a split, and then this player got pushed, but From the way, you know, GK are already set up, it looks like they sent one player down there with no support, and they are taken out. Now, Xavier getting into the mix of things with Nongshim Red and Geek Fam, of course, here to third party and take shots whenever they can. They have one elimination already. All of Xavier in one tower right here, and Nongshim Red just finally gets taken out, and it's actually due to the side of Geek Fam. Geek Fam, oh, you know it's coming. This team's so aggressive. They saw it in the elimination feed. Multiple players of Xavier has gone down, and yeah, they're going in to the finish now.
Only Frankie up and alive, and we saw Frankie do some
aggression.
fantastic snipes, but here it comes. Geek Fam, they know what they've done. They've taken up two. They want that final team wipe, and it is almost instantaneous. They don't even get to finish a sentence, and then we immediately move on to FaZe, fighting for control of these hilltops up against Genesis, and oh, what a tough fight.
Yeah, it's like a powder keg just went off. It's fighting all around. Literally, it was quiet only a moments before, and now it's just all-out mayhem. Everybody, a lot of teams deciding to fight for the high ground. Not many teams full sending it down to the shelter area, so prioritizing the high ground and working down. Of course, I don't think they expected this many teams, this much chaos up here. GIDS right now trying to throw some nades over. FaZe did lose. No, FaZe had a player knocked, but they're up as a full team. Geek Fam finishing up their fight, not even in the zone yet, right? They'll take fights wherever it comes.
We talked about that winning condition for Geek Fam, and it's that they don't need zone. They want the outside of the zone. They want to constantly be fighting their way into zone, fighting their way through the blue. And now, well, now it's going to be up to the likes of Genesis, DOGMA, GIDS to see if they can replicate that, because they also find themselves right alongside Geek Fam trying to push on into zone and hopefully trying to do so without losing any further members. But again, up against GK Esports, we can already see GK taking a little bit of actions. Genesis makes that stand, and so far they do well. They pick up two, but oh, come on, Geek is here as well?
Yeah, this is a familiar scene. We literally just saw this like moments before. Geek Fam, third party, two teams. Once again, Geek Fam, third party, two teams. But they might have a taste of their own medicine as another team moving in for their third party. It's VK. Or not VK, sorry, Vivo Keyd. Vivo Keyd coming in, but a second too late. They actually get pushed back. And now Geek Fam sitting in the edge of zone in a decent position. And I think they still managed to keep up to 5 eliminations.
This is ridiculous. Vivo Keyd now trying to capitalize off of that chaos, but Geek Fam might be just a little bit too quick. That vehicle rotation is going to come on in. We can see the push. We can see the attempt at applying that pressure from Diego, but HP are looking low. Snipes is down. They have lost a member in the meantime, so this is technically a 2-on-4 situation. Maybe a 2-on-3 if they can get the reses coming through.
Oh, look at all of those nades raining in. That's going to do it for Geek Fam. Geek Fam go out, but 7 eliminations. That's not too bad. And I mean, they fought maybe 5-6 teams on their way in and finally getting third party themselves. Very good, smart push by Vivo Keyd, taking advantage of that opportunity. IHC here saw them start popping off yesterday towards the later stages. They have made their way down to the shelter area, keeping 4 alive, looking very strong, very healthy as a team, and gatekeeping out the Furious Gaming team. Furious Gaming, I don't think they're going to make it past IHC here.
Again, IHC running with a different roster. We saw Zyol replace Godless yesterday. This time, both Godless and Zyol on the roster. And IHC looking pretty refreshed, looking pretty hyped. I mean, they're already picking up those 2 eliminations as Furious Gaming goes down. So this might be a different version of IHC, at least the version that we were expecting. We'll have to wait and see if they can bring through that performance as Vivo Keyd now, after their wonderful success, need to make that rotation into center zone. And look at this outskirt, look at the vicinity. I mean, you've got Geekay Esports, you've got TEM Entertainment, you've got BESIKTAS and 4 Angry Men right up ahead of you. Where do you go from here?
Pick your poison, right? Pick a team, take the fight. There's not much playable area left. There might be some pockets that, you know, on the very edge that Vivo Keyd could survive in, which it actually is not too bad of a choice, right? You don't know where the circle's going to go, and if you take a position on the high ground and a fight might be elongated, and then the circle is going to shift in a way where you don't have much control. Speaking of control, BESIKTAS right here controlling the low ground, which is probably better than the high ground, because the high ground, everyone could see you from up there, and more than likely, you're going to have to come down. So you're just going to be constantly in the sightlines and firing range of so many different teams. 4AM do get that revive up to 4 eliminations, looking a bit better than their performance towards the late stages of yesterday. IHC, of course, just constantly controlling the edge, fighting their way in.
Oh, the last member here of Satan being caught on art with Vivo Keyd in their rotation. It was only a matter of time as they head through that southern rotation. And currently they do find themselves pretty well centered up, so they pick their poison beautifully. And now FALCONS up here against IHC fighting for control of these edge points of shelter. IHC making quite an aggressive push.
Oh man, FALCONS are just pretty much stuck down there. That's never a good look. Whenever you're fighting for these shelter positions, you want to be the team that's pushing. You want to be the team that's aggressive. Of course, don't get third-partied. You got to make sure that they don't get shot in the back by the reject team, which is looking like what's going to be starting to happen. IHC, one member is knocked. They will be getting that revive. FALCONS, however, trying to fight back with the grenades. That's a good one. They do get another nade. Now's the time for FALCONS to push out and do something, because if they don't do something now, they're going to get a full reset, and FALCONS are already down to 2. Look at how low IHC is. FALCONS needs to make the push. They will apply some pressure with that Molotov. Hopefully it's good for them. Otherwise, they're going to let IHC come back, and oh, yeah, that Molotov nearly eliminated the entire team, and IHC goes down. That's what I like to see out of the FALCONS team. Some punchback power, and FALCONS defend beautifully against the 4-man team of IHC.
It's been long awaited. Unfortunately, though, their journey does not end. We see Yusuf going down there to Vivo Keyd, who have a beautiful line of sight. And of course, with all the mayhem and the chaos that's just erupted, they know exactly where the action is. They know exactly where there are some potential eliminations around the corner. 4 angry men pushing on up here just on the outskirts of zone, now having to move into potentially either Vivo Keyd or TEM Entertainment, or take their chances with the BESIKTAS, who we know BESIKTAS are not strangers to any uphill battles. Falcon once again on the chopping block up here against Rejects, moving on in with that push.
Man, Rejects just slammed in here. Here's that parking garage I was talking about. Look at all those cars. So many cars. Falcon down to 1 player. Rejects now taking over this bunker position. Beautiful push by the Reject team. They just went for it. They realized what they had to do. 4AM trying to do the same thing, just going for it. However, they are now down to 1 member. Like I said, coming from the high ground to the low ground on these flat open hillsides is definitely not the advantage you want in terms of high ground. They're not only getting shot at by the team that's defending against them, which is TEM Entertainment, but I'm pretty sure BESIKTAS was raining in shots as well.
I mean, absolutely. After that clutch that they head through, they brought on Miramar, they're absolutely no strangers here to these uphill battles. Train to kill. Hello, making an appearance here on the scoreboard. Already 3 eliminations. Looking to add a 4th, maybe even a 5th, as Vivo Keyd with their 8 eliminations. Am I reading that correctly? 8 eliminations for Vivo Keyd, moving in from that southern position.
Oh, make that 9 if he could get that. Did he? I think he's... No, he did not manage to steal it away. So close. 8 eliminations still for Vivo Keyd, and a beautiful position. They managed to slice right down the middle of that high ground, using those rocks and smokes to a very effective degree. They're going to manage to beat out the 4AM team that was coming down from a similar position. Rejects down to 3. Not fully in the circle. They should be okay. Just scooch on in just a little bit. Make sure you get those smokes down first, though. And the side of Gamelord and Train to Kill on the northern side, they've been sitting pretty quiet, very comfortable, avoiding a majority of the fights that are happening down on the south.
The only real competitors to them are, well, each other, but coming through from that side with that little bit of a ridge line, having the opportunity to, as you said, all the teams moving down from that hilltop, just exposing themselves, lying themselves open basically for a few extra potential eliminations, either to Game Lords or Train to Kill. So the opportunities are there, but these teams will not be going down that easy. We can already see Vivo Keyd keeping their eye out on that horizon, and of course, keeping their heads on a swivel, because they know there's so many teams moving in from the southern portion of the zone down to the north. TEM Entertainment now, a couple of shots, heading through to Vivo Keyd, and Rejects just on the opposite end of that hilltop.
Circle shifts north once again, so everybody has to come off this hilltop now. A little bit of the southern side is in play, but that's pretty much just the roadside and just flat open terrain. I'm going to imagine all 3 teams on the south are going to suffer some sort of casualties. Meanwhile, the teams on the north sitting very comfortable. Train to Kill and Gamelord do get that circle towards them. Game Lord might lose that ridge in play, though, with his circle slightly shifting down south of them.
Train to Kill just getting a slight more of a zone blessing in this situation. And for Vivo Keyd, for TEM Entertainment, as soon as they go past those trees, their cover, it's null and void. So TEM Entertainment now trying to make a dash on in, trying to close the gap a little bit closer, heading into more of an eastern approach. And this is going to be an interesting one now, because they might actually have a perfect line of sight onto Vivo Keyd. There it is, Adrian down to a sliver of HP, nearly down to nothing. But they just managed to get behind that care package.
Great smokes for them to use right there. So slowly starting to choke teams in. You see Vivo Keyd losing one player, another player lock. Here comes the Rejects team. They have to make their play. Falcon finally gets taken out. Good job for Falcons with that solo player trying to make it up to the 6th place finish. Now it's Vivo Keyd versus the Rejects, but Vivo Keyd have to worry more about than just the Rejects, as TEM Entertainment firing him from the sides, getting a knock, and then Rejects getting the finish with the beautiful nade. We're down to the top 4 teams. Rejects sitting comfortably. TEM Entertainment, however, same cannot be said for them.
I love the push from Rejects. It was quite a gamble, but now they find themselves on a similar approach to Train to Kill, just absolutely hitting so many shots towards TEM Entertainment. And TEM Entertainment feeling the brunt from pretty much all 3 sides. Maybe Rejects can apply that pressure to Train to Kill, and that will give them the space and the timing needed to recover their losses. But for the time being, there it is. TEM Entertainment, Train to Kill, now picking up each other's pacing. Game Lords need to move on in. They need to join the action.
That is a nasty angle Duelo has on the Game Lord team. If he remains calm and fire off some more accurate shots, those are really good knocks that could be had. All he needs is smoke down to his left side. I don't know if he has a smoke, though. Maybe Divine has one. I think Divine did just pop out a smoke. If Duelo could get his left side smoked out so he doesn't have to worry about Train to Kill, he could have some really nasty shots onto this team. Game Lord, however, is deploying smokes of their own, effectively obscuring the vision that we just saw Duelo have earlier. Now teams are firing back and forth. Every teams are taking shots at one another. Circle closes beautifully into the middle, forcing all of these teams to make some sort of move.
I like that, really putting these teams through the gauntlet now as they need to snake it up into the grasses. They will be losing majority of their respective ridge lines, majority of the cover that they've been holding onto so beautifully up until this point. But TEM Entertainment, I mean, I feel so sorry for them. They have just been getting punted lead after lead bullet, just going straight in their direction, not having any sort of time to recover. We can see they're right on top of each other, just trying to stay alive. And now Duelo comes on in and adds to the pressure gauge.
Yeah, I feel sorry for that tree right there. That tree's been soaking up a lot of bullets as well. The only hard cover that they have, and the rock, but man, I think TEM Entertainment is about to bow out here. Too many teams raining in fire from all sides. Still got one player left here. If he could weather this a little bit longer as Train to Kill. Train to Kill getting... Oh, when did the Train to Kill took out Game Lord? I was so focused on TEM Entertainment. Game Lord has just been eviscerated, out of the match, evaporated. And now, hold on, take a look at this. RC goes out, and TEM Entertainment stays alive with 2, and they're going to bring it down to a 2v2.
But look at their meds, TEM Entertainment, they don't have much to work with. They have literally nothing. Now down to Mormon as Train to Kill are just on a rampage. They got 10 eliminations, and now they're looking to close it out for good. Down to Mormon, we can see nothing to do with meds, nothing. We've got
he got the knock.
That's it.
TEM Entertainment, he got the knock on the other player though. Legend is down. These 2 nades for the Hail Mary. Oh, he uses all 3. It's a little bit far. Can one bounce a little bit further? Oh, shooting the buggy, trying to blow that up maybe. Oh, they'll get the revive though. But no meds, is it worth the revive? That's the question. Oh, I think he went back and dropped him some grenades. He's prone in the open. Did Jane spot it out? Some shots raining right back, using his teammate as bait. Get some good damage in. But Jane's got one more first aid. I think Jane knows he's out in the open. But he does not want to risk firing off some shots and then getting hit back as Jane almost went down earlier. Oh, good timing for Jane though, right as he pulled out the grenade. What a win. What a clutch by Jane from Train to Kill. I mean, it looked like it was Train to Kill's game, and TEM Entertainment was going to be the 4th team out, but all of a sudden Gamerz out, Rejects is out, and then it was almost a win for TEM Entertainment. TEM Entertainment, that's a team that's way down in the leaderboards as well. They didn't get the chicken, but that was a good finish for them to, you know, really shoot themselves up the ranking as far as Train to Kill is concerned. I mean, they're not doing too shabby, you know, third place coming into today and then getting that chicken dinner. That gap between second and third, that 20-point difference almost, is suddenly a lot smaller.
Oh, absolutely. This is what we were waiting for. Yesterday, as we mentioned, as our analyst talked about it, we only had a 40 points gap between that second and third at some points. That closed on up right towards the end. We had Train to Kill picking up the pacing, which is something we've been waiting for. We knew that they brought in some interesting, you know, opportunities for themselves. It was just that final execution that they needed to bring through, and here it is. That winner chicken dinner. But what an absolutely beautiful showing from them in that final zone.
Honestly, this first game I liked a lot because it pretty much showed us all the teams, you know, that aren't in the top besides Train to Kill are showing up today. Everyone's coming out swinging, but the team that swings the hardest in this first game will be Train to Kill.
Train to Kill Esports bust out the first chicken dinner here of the day with 27 points on the board. TEM Entertainment, man, trying to snake their way and take that one away from them, but just couldn't get it done at the end of the day. They ended up with 18 points on the board. I'll tell you one thing, Seven. Train to Kill Jane popped off in this match.
I agree with you, baby. I'm so glad you brought him up, Hot Jukes. Jane put up 8 eliminations, and what's more impressive out of those eliminations is he was able to do that with just, I think it was 409 damage. Talk about being able to steal some eliminations. I am happy to see Rejects there towards the top 2, 15 points for them. That's going to be good. And then Vivo Keyd, we saw Vivo Keyd taking on the fight with Geek Fam. By the way, Geek Fam, this is what I was talking about, Glitter, earlier. Only 1 placement point, but 7 eliminations.
Wow.
The aggression. It's the aggression all over again, and they were doing well in the eliminations. They just got caught out a little bit earlier than they would have liked, but you guys were just highlighting Jane. Phenomenal performance. 8 elims on 400 damage. That is efficiency, okay? 8 elims for it, and 34% of the team contribution. Plus, we also get Legend up here for T2K. Geek still making an appearance because of all of those elims. And then, like you were also saying, Seven, we had some Vivo Keyd popping off. Adrian with 6 of those elims. But listen, I put him in my teams to watch for a reason. T2K. All those second places, they paid off. We start off the day with a chicken dinner.
You called it. Glitter Damas is back.
Could be. Could be, in fact, back in the fingers are on the head. She is charging up and ready to go here. And you can see right now, this is the actual fan vote leaderboard. So all you guys that went in game, got your PMGC tokens and voted. So far, S2G is still up on top. You see Bigatron in second place and Power all the way at 5th. I wonder if we're going to see this change soon, Seven, with how some of the teams are performing in this group. Do you think that's something likely? Who would you vote for?
I would vote for Geek Fam, and I'm surprised we're not already seeing Geek Fam out there with the way they're currently performing and the aggressiveness that they're being able to showcase. They're just a fun team to watch, like the way they're currently playing.
Glitter, who would you?
I would agree with that. Honestly, I'm a big fan of the aggression. You know that we love when teams are elim heavy, okay? Yeah. It just makes the games that much more excited, and when they're not afraid to have those aggressive early and mid-game stages, it makes the game more entertaining. Now we're looking at the overall ranking, though. Geek Fam holding on to first place, hitting the triple digits off of those elims, but the jump up from T2K into second place, and they actually had a pretty sizable gap that they had to make up, Seven.
And the down roll spiral continues for GK Esports. They got 0 points, and now they're going to lose on that second place to T2K. I am going to be looking at some of the other teams, though. You can look at Vivo Keyd right now being able to push up there. We saw a tie between some of those teams in 4th and 5th. And Reject, this is why I was happy to see some of those higher points out of them on that first match, moving up to 9th place. And it's crazy how most of these teams are going to be packed. Like, if this continues on, I'm going to be so excited because we might get a flashback to last week when it came down to the last game on the last day. And I called them out earlier. I'm going to have to do it again. The Savior. I mean, I don't know what's going on with this team. They decided to take onto a fight outside of the circle instead of focusing actually going into the circle. And that's what ended up hurting them. They saw one player knocked and they fully sent it to... Not sure if it was just a spur of the moment, but Miramar is coming up, Hajux.
Yeah, Miramar's coming up here next. You know what I really like to see was TEM Entertainment. They got a nice little bump from where they were sitting on the leaderboards after a rough day number 1. So to see them start off strong, put some good points, yeah, 2nd place. I'm looking forward to see how they perform here for the rest of the day. Here are the top Miramar performers. I mean, Geek Fan, I think, is going to be on the leaderboards of pretty much almost any one of these stats just to do how they're performing. But hey, we also see a team that you were calling out earlier, 7 up on here.
Which one? Which one out of all of them? Are you talking about Rejects? Are you talking about Geek Fam?
I think it's going to be Rejects right there.
Yeah. I'm hoping they can continue on with what they were able to do on that first match in Erangel, but I'm actually going to be looking at BESIKTAS. This is a team that's currently in 12th place. And if Miramar is your strongest map, and if you may be able to start off the day here on a good Miramar note, why not? BESIKTAS is probably going to be my pick to watch as well.
I'm glad you said that, though, because they were in the top 11, fell out of it after this first match, and now they're heading into a map that they supposedly can do well on. So this is a perfect opportunity to bounce back.
Yes, indeed. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at y'all's team to watch here for match number 2. And I see that you got Vivo Keyd in there, Glitter. I mean, they got some points in match number 1. Do you, what are you really expecting to see from them here in match 2?
It was the aggression. The reason I picked them, it was the aggression. They had so many eliminations, and that was just, especially from the way they started yesterday, a night and day difference from the performance that we saw. So they went back and they did some sort of review. They fixed some mistakes, and it's working so far. I want to see if they can carry that on into Miramar. And then Game Lord 7, we both picked them. I mean,
you want to go first? You want me to go first? Yeah, you know what? Keep going. Keep going, Glitter.
You can't. It's too... Listen, I know it's my first day of this weekend here, but it's too passive. I'm not on board. We even heard the caster say Zuti didn't even notice they died when they did die, because you can't just hang out and watch all of the action go on around you. I want to see them bring something to the table now. They're definitely capable of doing it. We saw them had some good performances towards the end of the day. Give me more elims. 5 people at T2K. Consistency.
She's being nice. I'll be a little bit more harsh. When you have 4 people alive, 25 minutes into an actual game, and you have 0 eliminations, yes, that is way too passive. We need to see a little bit more aggressiveness out of them, and that's what I was talking about in the first segment, how this team, yeah, they are getting those placement points, but that's just not going to be good enough, especially if you're trying to go for the top 3, and I hope this team is not thinking about, oh, we just want to make it to survival stage, because no, this is the Pmgc. You can't be thinking that way, please.
To be even a little bit more harsh there, to translate what Seven said earlier. I think at one point you even said, is this team allergic to elimination points? You know, it's tough to see them that late game busting out 0. But you know what? I hope we're saying this to hopefully motivate that squad to really turn up that aggression. Because if you want to make it a top 3, hey, you have a chance right now to get it done. You have to turn up the heat right now. And speaking of turn up the heat, we got Miramar up next, and it's almost ready to go. Let's take it on over to our casters.
Thank you, Hot Jukes. Game number 1 is down for the books, and the biggest takeaway is a lot of the teams that struggled yesterday, well, I mean, they are here to play, and they are swinging hard. It's no longer, you know, a 2-team show that out of GK and Geek Fam. There's some other teams now putting their name into the mix for us to really keep an eye out on. And man, it's just getting better and better as Proxy.
I'm loving it. We were talking about it off camera. The fact is, we're seeing a whole different side of these teams. We're seeing the teams that we've been waiting for step it up. Yes, it's not everyone. D. Xavier, we are waiting for you as well. There's a few more teams that have to join the party. There's a few more teams that have to join the fray and bring forth that performance that we know that they are capable of. If they were not capable of it, they would not be here on our second map of the day in Miramar for the PMGC. Come on, we're waiting for it.
Yeah. Oh, Miramar, here we go. Plane is out on your guys' screen, and it looks like it's going to be a very western plane path. Yeah, from west down to south. Pretty good one, honestly, for a lot of these teams. Yesterday's Miramar games, I'm trying to recall how they actually went. Yesterday was, we got that one circle all the way down southeast in Porto.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I feel like yesterday's Miramar was very unique. Not a real taste of your typical Miramar games, which, you know, it isn't a bad thing. But I'm more of a vanilla guy myself, right? Like, that southeastern ending, I don't think any teams really had a good idea of how it was going to play out. Hopefully we get a match that's, you know, for the lack of a better word, more cookie cutter, you know, because then it's like, yeah, sure, it's like we've seen it before, but it's like we know, you know, more importantly, these teams know what they have to do instead of, you know, just kind of scuffling about and trying to fight their way in and then not really, you know, committing because there's like so many ridges, and it's like, you know, maybe we'll just not push, maybe we'll just stay here, maybe if the nade connect. Yeah, there was a lot of hesitancy yesterday due to, you know, simply the terrain, so to say. So now let's see where this first circle is gonna go, and well,
okay, goodbye. Whatever you were looking for, goodbye.
No,
So
no.
we are getting down to the southwest.
okay, this is also very unorthodox part of Miramar, but not as many ridges for use as cover. There's, yeah, for sure there's a lot of high ground, but it's more like do or die high ground, right? It's not a high ground with a lot of different, you know, ridge levels where it's like, okay, maybe we can play in this pocket and this team will play in that pocket and so on. This is more of a, if you control the top, you control the top. If you try to get the top and you don't get at the top, you are out. Pretty sad, like pretty simple.
Pretty stock standard, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we see this all the time. I mean, looking at the drop sites, you know, if we were talking specifically about that area with Chumacera, Val del Mar, I'll talk about that in a bit. Besiktas,
shots.
good morning. Good morning to you. Or good evening, rather. Thank you for that. That was a lovely little bit of a start. So already we've had one elimination. This is compared to Erangel about 12 minutes sooner.
Oh, yeah.
What we saw.
Yeah.
So teams definitely stepping it up, and again, it's that whole thing of where yesterday we were just talking about Miramar being the get in your vehicle game, you know, vehicle simulator. There wasn't a real opportunity for teams to jump into any sort of potential early positions to get themselves set up to play with that containment early on, because it was just it was such a hard shift. But now, still a hard shift. I'm not going to lie. I mean, all the teams that run that northern side, like, you know, Game Lords, like FALCONS there towards Hacienda del Patron, I mean, congratulations. You need to join the territory of Nongshim RedForce, who love that Chumacera. We need to join Four Angry Men over towards Val del Mar. It's going to be a fun time for rotations in these teams.
Speaking about rotations, Geek Fam here, the furthest team away from the circle. I mean, it's what they want, right? It's maybe not this one. Maybe when, I don't know, Miramar, when the circle's that far away, and if it goes any more south, all they got is uphill battles. This one's maybe not the circle Geek Fam is looking forward to as far as fighting into zone goes.
Yeah, no, it's not the expectation here, but what is nice to see is that we are still sticking to some of those expected drop sites. I mean, Train to Kill over towards Graveyard, at least there's some sort of normality there. Of course, GK Esports making an early rotation into Chumacera, which I like. Again, this terrain for me is, it's a little crazy, but I agree with what you said. The first team to get it to the top and contain that and hold that, they've got that advantage. It's not a case of they suddenly are surrounded by like 50 other teams in pockets. So now we want to wait and see who's going to be that first team to take the gamble to set themselves up.
Yeah, they could create a buffer zone, essentially. We saw one of the GK members, they don't even have a vest, like not even a level 1 vest. So a very fast early rotation, you know, not even taking the time to look around for a vest to secure a position in a really crucial point on the map. Now, it is the first zone, right? It's a good spot, but anywhere on the Miramar match or Miramar map that's a good spot in the first circle may not be a good spot by the time the second circle rolls around. So we'll just have to see how the circle shifts, how the cookie crumbles. IHC taking their time looting. Of course, they don't mind. They could have had a really good straight shot into zone and just in a high ground position as well. No teams in front of them essentially besides 4am, but 4am is way down in the south. But IHC, they don't want to rush their rotation. They want to grab all the ammo they can and all the meds they can because their plan is to use all that ammo and all those meds fighting their way in.
Yeah, taking a page out of Geek Fam's strategy book, but they've been able to do that before, and we know on Miramar, IC, if needs be, will take a swim. They'll make sure they get those placements. But what I want to see is, IHC right now, they're very comfortable there over towards Monte Nuevo, so they'll be taking a more southern approach. They're just on the cusp of getting themselves into the zone, and Furious Gaming, moving on in from that El Pozo region, might be able to miss them completely. So if that is the case, IHC completely left to their own devices, and we've seen what happens when you give any team that much space, that much time to formulate their plan and to basically choose their own engagement, choose when they get engaged. That becomes a very dangerous game to play.
Speaking about being left to their own devices, I just realized they're no longer hot dropped in Monte Nuevo. Genesis Dogma, it was Genesis, right? Yeah. So they gave it up completely, and they definitely gave it up because the plane flew right over Monte Nuevo, making it a very easy drop for both teams. But instead, Genesis were forced to scrap loot on the southeast, and that actually costed them a player very early on to the side of BESIKTAS. So already effects of day number 1 spilling over into day number 2 in terms of drop spots.
I love it. Again, I think that's why we're seeing that different, zone, that different presence from these teams. The fact that on Erangel, we only saw some action over towards the 14-minute mark. Yes, here, 2 minutes in, we at least lost a player, but all teams still alive, and now we're finally seeing a little bit of an engagement here on the 7th minute marker. It is FaZe Clan up against Nongshim RedForce. Busy just clearing out the angles, getting a nice flanking position. And Nongshim RedForce right now very split up. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 members pretty close on out, but they're already backing off. They're already saying, listen, this is not worth it for us. We still want to get ourselves set up.
Yeah. They're just creating a pretty much a buffer zone for the northern region. Usually, this is a really good spot to do so, but honestly, with the circle being so far south, controlling that entire Chuma high hills, chances are it might not even come into play by the time the second circle rolls around. A lot of teams actually making it pretty deep into the center of the circle. They're just skipping past all the high ground, right, in the middle, because, like I said, it's do or die. Like, if there's a team up there already, it's going to be tough trying to get up there. So a lot of teams aren't even going to peek their heads up there. They're just going to assume it's taken, and they're going to take the roads and play the low grounds further down south, which is technically even more center, so it's a better position in theory.
It's crazy to see. We basically got that entire outskirt of the zone completely open. Other than, Furious Gaming, they're over towards the west on that high ground. Everywhere else, it's open for the taking. It's only really crazy stacked teams over towards the center. So, I mean, for the likes of, FALCONS, Game Lords, and even Geek Fam making their rotation, as we can see on the map now, they will be very happy with the fact that these teams have chosen that rotation. What are these zones, Zute? Come on, I've never seen this in my career. I've never seen this.
I love it.
I'm speechless.
It's beautiful. This is better than the ice cream I had yesterday that I was telling you about.
Oh, stop.
Oh, here comes a mad dash of rotations. Everybody, time to visit the beautiful island of Los Higos. Good luck making it there. Now, there's 2 bridge access ways. We see one here on the western side. Already fight breaking out, but BESIKTAS managing to just get slightly ahead of TEM Entertainment. That's going to work for them. And on the eastern side, this is the eastern side. Sorry. Wow, yeah, I mean, goes to show how often I see fights. It goes to show how often I see fights down here. I thought this looked like the western bridge to me. But my mistake. Eastern bridge breaking out a fight. Same with the western bridge. IHC versus Furious Gaming on the western side. And then I see a lot of teams going for a swim, just straight down the middle potentially. Some teams electing to just play on the northern island Well, when I say island, I mean Miramar. They're playing the northern part of Miramar, the southern island, being camped out right there smack dab in the middle. A lot of teams looking like they're going to try and camp some swimmers.
This is ridiculous. I mean, I feel like we're on military base island, but it's so much better. We were talking about Impala and Puerto Pareso as a final zone, as a very uncommon part that we see of Miramar. You know, some of the teams might not be very comfortable, might not be very aware of the terrain and, you know, some of the pockets they can utilize. Well, we've just one-upped it. We are going full throttle. We are taking a full road trip around Miramar, the spots that you never see in competitive PUBG Mobile Esports. Welcome to the side of Los Higos, as all of the teams now are making a swim, making a dash. Xavier at least reaching land, but for how much longer? Frankie still yet to cross.
Is it a road trip, though? Or is it more of a boat trip? Yeah. A lot of teams.
I guess if you take the bridges.
A lot of teams having to, you know, swim or maybe boat over. I don't think there's many boats to be had that even spawns in down here. So, taking a look at the map, let's see who's made it across so far. Furious Gaming, they've made it across. They lose only one member. IHC is going to get in comfortably after, you know, winning that fight on the Western Bridge. But BESIKTAS camping the Eastern Bridge, completely denying access way. And then you get this mess, this chaos, just straight down the middle. A lot of teams swimming over, a lot of teams not swimming over, wanting to camp this area instead to pick up eliminations. But if it goes south, which it might go south, they're going to end up getting camped themselves on the other end. And we still got teams rotating in from the blue zone because poor old Geek fam. Look at that. Geek fam are like, oh, God, we were not ready for this. And that circle goes further down south right onto Los Higos. What a crazy zone. I thought last week we had really insane cool zones. Man, this one takes the cake.
Group yellow, baby. Here we are. Geek fam, they're going to have a little bit of PTSD for Northern drop sites, I think, for quite some time, as 4 angry men are now making their approach, and unfortunately running into Xavier. Game Lords have found at least one of FALCONS, as Yusuf is just getting swarmed and completely alone. No opportunity really for that engagement, never alone. A little bit further off is going to try and close that gap as DeMar looks for the res, cooking up a beautiful nade, but is going to be sending it in the direction of not where they need it to be. And that means the FALCONS lose 2.
FALCONS do get 2 down right here. Continuing on with the fight, though, I think they realize, hey, we're probably not going to make it into that circle. May as well take this fight and pick up some points. Geek fam finally making it out of the blue zone. There we go, finally. They're out of the blue zone, and they are going to keep rotating, of course, because zone is still far away from them. Got to go down that stretch of road, and Falcon snipers popping in some nice shots over to Game Lord, not connecting, however. Falcons down to 2, and it's like, at this point, it's like, do you just stay and fight for the points, or do you try and make it into the zone still? I think these teams are really struggling with deciding what to do in terms of those 2 options.
What's even crazier is while we've been talking, the zone has centered up on Los Higos. So for the first time ever, I get to say on a Miramar map, majority of the zone right now is water. You got to take a swim, you got to take a boatation, you got to try and jump across a bridge if you get the opportunity to, but you can just see the absolute chaos that is being ensued because of this ridiculous zone shift. Our rejects, I mean, they were one of the first teams to make that swim across onto Los Higos, and now they might be reaping the benefits. Geek fam, unfortunately, when we talk about those third-party opportunities, now literally in the water, getting shot at with what option?
Man, so many players just swimming onto shore right now. I love how you could see some of the cars, some of the vehicles still just poking out of the water. There's so many cars just in the water as well, serving as some sort of hard cover, to be honest. in the water side, that could actually help some players out. But yeah, take a look at, I see a buggy, I see a smoking vehicle, I think that's a 3rd vehicle. Mika trying to grab some air, and the second he gets some air, shots raining down on him. This is FaZe Clan here, trying to farm as many elimination points as they can. Same with the rejects. They swam early, and now they're reaping the rewards, being able to shoot back at everyone else. And yeah, this is indeed a straight up Los Higos finish on Miramar.
Oh, it is beautiful. This is one of the first times I've been able to see this. And what chaos can we expect from this? So BESIKTAS moving on in from that eastern side. They've also been treated to some beautiful land, some beautiful real estate as Rejects pick up a few more eliminations. But again, the elimination counters are not that crazy. You see the numbers, they're not that insane just yet because there's still a whole slew of potential, still a lot to go around as Falcons move on in right next to Genesis, DOGMA, GIDS. Daybot will get that information. Doesn't seem like they're going to be jumping into the action just yet because they've got a few of their teammates in the water, at least with the backup there of their duo. Maybe they can get powerful and never alone out.
4 a.m. getting into fight. This is on the southern side of the part of Miramar. This is on the Los Higos Island. They will take down that player. D Xavier, both players swimming ashore, forced to get into quick engagement right there. D Xavier go down to 2 members. This is Geek Fam with 1, GK still with 2, Train to Kill with 3. I'm taking a look, trying to figure out which teams are still 4-man teams. There's a couple of them still, which is going to come into play huge, especially for the side of 4 a.m. They got to push their way in and fight their way in onto Los Higos.
I mean, I'm taking a look at FaZe, I'm taking a look at BESIKTAS, you know, TEM Entertainment, who do have full numbers, but they first have to get their way through Train to Kill. So might be a potential there coming through from that eastern side for Angry Men, also rotating around from the west, right alongside IHC. And Rejects still keeping their eyes out here on the horizon, around the water, to see who's going to be making a crossing and who they might be able to pick up. But again, so much zone availability has been given up to the water. So yes, maybe some of those vehicles might help them out because at this point, I don't know, if we go anywhere closer to the water, I don't think these teams have an option.
IHC successfully defending against that 4 a.m. push. Now it's down to 1v1. Svan should be... Oh, nope. Just as I say that, that is actually FaZe from the other side of the river getting that finish right there. Now Svan is the last member up for 4 a.m. This 4 a.m. team was just literally a 4-man team a second ago. Now they are no longer 4 angry men. They are just 1 angry man. Same with the IHC. IHC down to just 1 player on that island.
Genesis hitting a few couple of shots. At least Alan has made it across, and they will be hopefully trying to make sure that their teammate can swim across quite safely. But we've got so many teams on this side. Reject still just being an absolute menace with that beautiful nade onto Victor. Does mean that Game Lord will now drop to only 1 potential player for that rotation. Vivo Keyd, they had such a good start on Erangel, but I don't think alongside them and every other team in this lobby, they were expecting this kind of a zone. How would you even prep for this kind of a zone?
Well, one thing I learned is just go for the swim early. All right, like just go for it. Rejects right now sitting really comfortably in a strong position right there on the south side, also being able to farm a lot of points. We are 100% confirmed on the Los Higos ending now. TEM Entertainment, they managed to avoid the fight with Train to Kill, just circumventing that and wrapping down to the southern side. That's going to be good for them. There is a 2-man team of Furious Gaming right in the heart of Los Higos. Now FaZe had 4 up. They decided not to cross the river and instead has been setting up camp at that compound, taking shots at everybody for the last like 10 minutes pretty much. Now they got to move in, but they do have 4. This 1v1 between Svan and IHC. Both teams down to their last players. Both teams need to move just a little bit further to go in. It looks like Alex is going to try and avoid this fight and instead wrap into the zone, giving Svan a nice way in. Here we have FaZe now crossing over. Nosham Red here taking a lot of good shots from inside the vehicles into the swimmers of FaZe. FaZe lose 1. FaZe still has 3 up though, but they have to deal with the rejects and GK on the other side. Ragnar waiting for them.
Yeah, I do not see an opportunity here now for FaZe Clan to make this happen. Tony K actually circling back over here towards Nongshim Red to see if they can find a different way through. Vivo Keyd, one of our other only 4-man teams, also didn't decide to make that trip over into Los Higos and now will be paying the price as Tony K rotates on back around to give Dooms a bit of a surprise, trying to take out that shot, trying to take out that pressure from the vehicle, but now out in the water they all are. Sporter will be looking for FaZe. Looking for that final shot onto Tony K. So hopefully get a conclusion to this. Oh,
I like what Nosham RedForce is deciding to do there, honestly. They know with 2 it's very unlikely that they could, well, maybe one of them will make it to the other side of the shoreline. But may as well go for the points, right? Go for those elimination points. They sit in the vehicles instead to use it as a means to be able to shoot in the water. And they take out, well, not just them, but them with RC take out the FaZe team. RC still taking shots at so many swimmers, man. They must be, I was going to say they must be spent on ammo, but then I realized there's loot in Los Higos too. They probably looted some ammo up, which they are utilizing to full effect right now.
and they were one of the only teams to take a hold of these compounds early on. So if there was loot available, likely Rejects has taken all of it, which is why we can see them being the first team to reach those double-digit eliminations as Train to Kill with that rotation on end. We were talking about those 4-man teams. It was TEM Entertainment alongside BESIKTAS that made that trip down to Los Higos. It is no longer TEM Entertainment, who are now reduced down to only 2 as Nongshim RedForce unfortunately feel the brunt of Rejects and their just big brain plays, man, making that rotation onto Los Higos. I mean, oh, loving it.
This fight's about to heat up even more, though, because if the circle goes right into the buildings, the city, the heart of Los Higos, we might get to see an urban finish, and there is still 18 players left alive. And if you take a look at this beautiful scenic shots, yeah, fighting here won't be easy either. It's almost like a city ending. It's just a mini city for all of these teams that are left. A lot of fighting out on the outskirts, though, as teams finally manage to swim in, slowly rotate in. Train to Kill now coming into the mix of things. Taking a look at Genesis, Dogma, GIDS. Genesis, Dogma. This team has been struggling a lot throughout the 2 days, and this is definitely a struggle bus in of itself, but they've made it pretty far, all things considered. So many teams already not being able to make it to this end game late zone.
I mean, here's the question, do you play that outskirts zone? Was it up to the early eliminations for Genesis? They might have had a slower rotation, but just choosing that timing right and managing to get in and capitalizing off of some of the chaos that might have been happening inland might be why they were rewarded with some opportunity onto Los Higos. Now, though, it's coming down to this potential of that urban finish. Will it end up in the urban side or will it actually shift towards BESIKTAS? Because then, I mean, my money's on them. They have full control of the terrain. They have all the ridge lines. If they can take out DXavier, at least the last remaining member of DXavier, then they are in full control of the southern portion.
They are aware of that last member of DXavier as well, which is really good. That's the worst thing that could happen to a 4-man team, getting caught by a solo player and then losing one player. But they'll control this territory for now. They're playing very cautious. They could play more aggressive, honestly, take more territory. But like I said, that one player of DXavier, if they were a little bit overextended, they could have easily lost one or maybe even 2 players going from a 4-man down to a 2-man. So playing it rather more cautious and not, I mean, the chicken dinner is in their sights pretty much. The only 4-man team, Rejects and Train to Kill with 3. Those are the only 2 other teams with 3 players. Everyone besides that have either 2 or just down to the last solo.
The beautiful benefits of that chaos. This is what we are reaping. We are being able to see what these teams are able to do in an absolute gauntlet of a Miramar, as only their second map of the day, mind you. So after the insane pace change that we saw on Erangel, immediately back into the chaos because there just was no other option. These teams really did not have another option to play a different style, to bring in a different form of energy. Miramar has just been, it has been ruthless. That's the best way I can say it. And now Genesis Dogma coming on through here from this northern side. The moment they stand up, it looks like Train to Kill are, well, trained on their position, waiting for those pixels to move.
Circles slowly crunching in. Every team pretty much stalemated now. Neither team looking to make a move until the next circle shift. TEM Entertainment here with only 2 up. It's been an absolute slugfest just making it here. So much bullets expended already into the water side, and there might be more as Enjoy is swinging out over here. He smells something fishy. He will spit out Bevy there, and that's another member of TEM Entertainment down. I think BESIKTAS now feeling a little bit more comfortable. They're making a group effort push rather than just holding that split. They will take down the side of TEM Entertainment. Next zone shifts too. It goes south. As if it can't get any more south, the last zone will go on the south side of Los Higos. Not just Los Higos, the south side of Los Higos, mind you.
It has literally just been the worst possible opportunities for any teams moving in from that northern side. And this is what I was talking about. BESIKTAS holding in that southern side, they are in full control now, at least of a portion of it. But however, the Xavier, at least the one player, is still alive. So that could be a potential threat, could be a potential thorn in their side. Train to Kill now moving on in from that northern end, trying to find an opportunity here up against the likes of BESIKTAS, but they have to fight their way into the zone.
Same for 4 a.m. Oh, I don't think he wants to fight his way in. I think he's going to just, he's going to try and crawl his way in very slowly to the tippy edge of the zone and wait a little bit longer. Lamborghini, he's kind of safe down here as long as BESIKTAS doesn't decide to push him, right? He's kind of isolated down here by himself. He can almost use BESIKTAS as a shield on his right-hand side, which is why he's taking shots. He wants to act big enough to keep him occupied so they don't think about pushing him. But here comes Train to Kill going for the push, and Rejects versus Furious Gaming in the city of Los Higos. I like this push out of Rejects. They're not playing too passive. They want to take full control and may as well do it now while the fight is somewhat isolated.
What a potential, absolutely booming game it could be here for Rejects, running already with 13 eliminations, just trying to close that gap onto Furious Gaming, who are having all of their nades prepped and ready, which is the only real helping factor here as a 2-on-3 scenario is about to ensue. The action comes on through. Duello actually finding Genesis Dogma in the meantime as well, as if you had time to focus on another team. Here it comes through.
You always love seeing that. When a team is focused on a fight and it hasn't fully broken out, they can turn their heads and just, knock a player from another team. Genesis Dogma will get that revive. The BESIKTAS and Train to Kill fight is starting to ensue now. Train to Kill not really getting the better end of things. They did manage to knock one player. They will get one confirmation there onto BESIKTAS. So BESIKTAS will hold strong and take out that team, but they go from a 4-man down to a 3-man.
Still massive potential. I mean, and the only other potential 3-man team, it is Rejects still up against Furious Gaming. And Justice is out for the hunt here, and they will do so. They will succeed. They are on 14 eliminations. This is the performance we've been waiting for from Rejects, but now their journey's not done. Genesis Dogma gets still up and alive in this one. Again, reduced down to only 2. We've got BESIKTAS moving in from that eastern side. And then we've got a few potential stragglers of 4 angry men. Well, 1 angry man and Lamborghini from the Xavier.
4 a.m. look like a new and revitalized team. And a more aggressive team. Or not, the Rejects team. Yeah, they are just... Yesterday, we saw them be extremely passive. Yesterday, in the very last match, you remember, they had 4 players, and they full sent it into a shack with 4 people all hiding in a shack, and they got absolutely decimated. Now with 3, instead of hiding, they're taking fights, they're being active, and they're picking up those points. This is the Rejects team that, Japan really wanted to see, and I'm so glad that they're showing out now. They had a good game in the previous match as well, racking up a lot of points. So Rejects looking very strong today. We'll see if it holds true. We're down to the last 5 teams now. Got 2 solos. The 2 solos actually really close to one another. The 2-man of Genesis Dogma. Man, shout out to Genesis Dogma. I don't know how they made it this far. They were one of the later teams, right, to swim over from the northern side.
They capitalized off of the chaos here in this zone, off of the chaos of this entire map. The way that we have been rotating, the way that we have been going through this terrain. I mean, they just got the perfect timing after the chaos, but now It's going to once again coming down to those decisions. Rejects now finding the last remaining member here from 4 Angry Men. Leaves us down to our 4 teams. We still have that straggler from DX Xavier, but Rejects, they look to be on a literal rampage with 15 eliminations as Genesis now finds BESIKTAS.
Ooh. The third party coming through. Rejects
Yes.
decides to strike now. Great timing. BESIKTAS down to 2. And Lamborghini is still up. If Lamborghini times as well and this fight kind of stalemates out or goes back and forth, Lamborghini could potentially steal the chicken dinner away from both of these teams. BESIKTAS will get the revive, quickly knocked back down to the nade by Justice. Good peeks back and forth. They don't want to commit too hard and lose one of their players. BESIKTAS now down to 1. It's all up to Peace. Can he get 1? Maybe 2 knocks. Doesn't even get the single one. Now Lamborghini has his work cut out for him. This Rejects team about to take the chicken dinner. They're feeling confident. They didn't lose a single player, which was actually crucial. If one of them got knocked, Lamborghini could see that from his position, and he would have stood up and third-partied. But Rejects playing so disciplined, now clearing this last area together, spots out
It's
Lamborghini. Over. It is all said and done. Look at the joy out of the Rejects team. An unlikely match to get a chicken dinner from, honestly, for everybody. Everybody involved. Probably, you know, that's not a typical standard fashion, you know, zone ending. Oh, yeah, we've practiced this before. This is how we're going to take the chicken. Rejects so happy bouncing back after a terrible day number 1 performance, I'd have to say. 9 eliminations, 1,372 damage. If we had a statistic for bullets shot into the water, it would be off the charts for this game.
And all of that just from one player. We have to remind ourselves that at one stage we were talking about Rejects having 15 eliminations before they took out the last 2 remaining teams. DX Xavier, though, coming through in 2nd place. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see those placement points. But as we've been saying, you can't just solely rely on those placements. You need to hit it strong with those eliminations. I mean, look at this. Rejects topping up with all 4 of their players in this fantastic showing of Miramar, picking up such a ridiculous amount of damage, a ridiculous amount of eliminations, and oh, it was just a beautiful showing from
The aggressive is
on you know, top right. That's how he got all those eliminations. He was spotting out the fishes with those binoculars. Very good game out of the Rejects. A Los Higos finish, a South Los Higos finish. Never seen before. I can't wait to see what happens next. Rejects looking strong.
We talked about him a little bit earlier, the Team Reject, and look at what they did in match number 2. 35 total points, 20 eliminations. I think this is a record for Group Yellow, if not a record for the whole PMGC. 7? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you are absolutely right in regards to Group Yellow. I will have to go back and watch some of the other teams because we did get some pretty high elims. Nonetheless, though, this team, they really didn't have to travel that much. By the way, in regards to the top 5, they were the team that least had to travel, and that's because they decided to rotate super early to Los Higos, and it ended up working out for them wonderfully. And then look at the stats from these players right here. I mean, Rajico being able to put up 9 eliminations, 1,300 damage, and then Sun HP from BESIKTAS being able to put up 700 damage, but he's not going to appreciate that conversion as he was only able to put up just 1 elimination, Glitter.
You know what? This is probably the most perfect comparison we could have gotten storylines wise. We talked about them because they started off right next to each other on the leaderboard at the top of the day. Then, a little bit of separation. Besiktas drops down, Reject go up, and now, insane performance that skyrockets them. But you have to give a little bit of credit to Besiktas too, because even when Reject sponges 20 elims, they still got 8. That's actually a lot, considering how many were taken away from the lobby.
Yep.
That's true, without a doubt. That is tough, especially considering when you see Reject just go and popping everybody to still steal 8 eliminations there when you really need them. Hey, I don't think you can really complain too much. But I guarantee you, we're going to see these leaderboards change big time. When you have a team take 20 eliminations and a chicken dinner, oh yeah, that's a big difference. And we're going to see that big difference right in a little bit, right after this break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Hot Jukes, here with 7WG and Glitter Explosion. 2 games already in the books here in day number 2, and we still got 4 more left to go. I hope you guys are really excited. And speaking of exciting, of course, we have to give a big thank you to our sponsors, Sony. The Sony Xperia 1.4 and Xperia Stream were created in collaboration with professional esports players. Play PUBG Mobile in 90 Hz with Xperia Stream's total cooling system and multiple ports for intensive gaming and streaming. Also give a big shout out to our platinum sponsor, Prime Gaming. That's right, you guys can get some free in-game content with Prime Gaming. You guys can claim PUBG Mobile items as well as other Prime benefits. So go check out Prime Gaming today. All right, now that we got the sponsors, I think it's time to take a look at those overall rankings. We mentioned them a little bit earlier. We're gonna see a huge jump from Reject. Just how far did they go? 4th place, baby. Woo!
Being able to jump 5 spots there for Rejects, that's what one amazing game can definitely do to you. And I'm also going to be looking at the top. Geek Fam really hasn't had... to be fair, though, that Miramar didn't help them out because they had such a north landing that they weren't going to be able to do anything. Nonetheless, though, T2K being able to catch up to them, they're only 2 points away from being able to overtake or at least tie 1st place, Glitter.
Oh, and then this is what we were also kind of alluding to. Besiktas back up in the top 11 now. Okay, jumping up to 9th place. Game Lord, Furious Gaming, TEM, all dropping down just a tad here. We see a little bit of movement down there at the bottom. Nothing crazy. But what I'm loving is that I think we're seeing a lot more aggression out of some of the teams that were just a tad bit quiet. To be fair, this last Miramar was what Rejects did well on, and then when they went into the Sanhok match, they fell off just a little bit. There's a lot of teams we have to kind of keep our eyes on here, 7, for consistency's sake.
Yeah, with the Xavier, I'm actually going to be seeing if they're going to go for that strat they went with yesterday, which was just placement points, something that we saw out of them just now in Miramar that worked wonders. Got them 15 points. And when we're looking at the drops, we got to talk about Bootcamp because you can see there was 2 teams there. It was FaZe Clan and it was FaZe Clan ended up winning that fight, but they did end up losing 2 players. I wonder if those teams are going to be readjusting. And you can also see a bit of a hot drop too towards the top northwest hot team. You can see FALCONS, and I think that might be the Xavier. So we'll see if they actually decide to take a fight there, Glitter.
Ooh. I mean, there's lots of possibilities. Pynon, IHC, and Reject down there. I mean, there could be, especially if you're coming off a crazy amount of elims like that, Jukes, I'd be a little bit worried.
Oh, big time. I mean, that Xavier Falcons, position is going to be tough if they hot drop each other in hot tid because, number one, they are really depending on that zone going to that island. And not to mention, they're both on the bottom of the leaderboard, so let them fight it out early. It's just not a win-win situation either way. But moving on, let's take a look at y'all's team to watch here for this next match, the Jungle. My most favorite match of the day. Favorite one to watch, least favorite to play competitively. Seven, I see you got some GK on there. BESIKTAS and GEEK, fam. Why'd you pick them?
GK, I mean, this is that last map was the 4th map that they just haven't really been able to perform well. Like a team that was so consistent at the beginning of yesterday has now completely disappeared. And we know what usually happens to those teams if they're not able to stop this spiral, and that's why I'm picking them here, because yesterday they were able to win that Sanhok. If somehow they can at least end up with the top 3 and spark up their day, being able to be a wake-up call for them, this will be a great way to just break that bad scratch that they're truly on. BESIKTAS, you heard me talk about the hot drop earlier. And then with GEEK fam, I'm pretty sure they're going to be feeling the pressure a little bit, Glitter, of some of those teams currently trying to hunt them down in first place.
Yeah, and we kind of alluded to that a little bit too. Like, to be fair, they didn't have the most favorable drop when it comes to where the zone was on the last map. But we did want to keep our eyes on them to see if they were going to be consistently dominant like they were yesterday. And they have slowed down just a tad. I think Sanhok's a really good opportunity to kind of ramp that back up. It's always going to be extra chaotic. And FaZe in the last game, I mean, they were just aggressive, okay? They had kind of picked up a little bit. It might not have been the chicken dinner, but they had kind of turned on that aggression. I want to see that carry through, especially in Sanhok. Get a really strong performance out of them. And then, of course, Reject after that. Just insanity. I want to see if they can keep doing it.
Take a look at some of the players here in the battle lobby. They are getting locked, loaded, ready to go. Here coming up soon. Sanhok is always just so pressure intense to how fast that zone goes. Now with the update as well, where the healing strategy is no longer a thing. That zone damage is even more powerful than ever before. And speaking of powerful, it's time to move on over to 2 of the most powerful casters in the game. Let's move it on over to Zute and Proxy.
Thank you, Jukes. Well, if S-Proxy and I had a power, it is the power to create crazy zone endings, because, yeah. Whilst he goes...
I'm telling you.
Yeah, we were saying, I don't think we've seen that happen in a competitive match of PUBG Mobile yet. I don't think I have, so... Hey, you put S-Proxy and Zute together, that's what you get. You get a Lost Higos finish. Let's see if that power comes into play here. I mean, what could be the craziest ending on Sanhok that we have not seen before? I feel like I've seen every circle on Sanhok just because it's so small, right? Yeah, I do believe maybe docks ending like at the actual docks, like the to the right of the S, like that pier. That's one place I haven't seen it in before. I've seen it in like above the D in docks, which is pretty far down there, but I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see. But the first thing that we got to settle out first is this bootcamp hot drop that's about to play out.
Oh, yes, indeed. Moving on into the action already. As we talked about it, in terms of the hot drops, we didn't see that on Erangel. Miramar, look, let's not count Miramar because Miramar was ridiculous. But are we going to bring in that action here on bootcamp? Are these teams once again going to jump in?
Maybe not. BESIKTAS actually, yeah, giving this location up over to the side of FaZe. If I could recall correctly, BESIKTAS yesterday opened 2 knocks onto FaZe, making it a 4v2, and then they lost, and we were talking about the killer mentality, right? That's just something that it was pretty evident that the BESIKTAS team did not have. And I was saying they should not hot drop, and they gave it up. Same with Genesis DOGMA, another team yesterday on the hot drops that we were watching, and we were just really puzzled, like, This is not how you contest for a drop shot. They played so passive to a point where it was a mistake. Like clear cut, like they're not playing it correctly by any means. It's not even play style question. It was just like, you are not playing this correctly. So both teams at least recognizing the fact like, hey, we are not a hot drop team. This is not what we do. This is not what we're comfortable with. We're going to just give it up and figure something else out rather than trying to tough it out and dropping a couple of games to learn in the process. So good on them to just straight up adapt. Rejects coming off the back of a very strong game will go down to 3 members early on to the side of Furious Gaming. A little bit of a split contested drop here, which is a little bit interesting.
It's quite interesting, especially when with the fact is that we're talking about rejects now. Losing one member right off the bat, pretty much right off the bat, with 2.5 minutes into the Sanhok. And we know Sanhok, it is third-party central, so you want to have as many numbers possible just to be able to contest all of the chaos that is surely going to ensue. We can see 4 angry men, but Chow being a little bit angry themselves and ensuring that elimination will happen. So 1 pickup here for 4 angry men and another pickup at least for the likes of Furious Gaming over towards rejects. So a few eliminations, a few trades back and forth, but generally we're still seeing the teams kind of just getting into their relative positions. I mean, BESIKTAS, yes, they gave up that bootcamp, era, but as we can see, Sun HP now split up, keeping an eye out on the Xavier. Oh, and Peace, as I mentioned it, they were very close to bootcamp. They had to take a rotation out to try and join the rest of their team. They're over towards Camp Alpha, and now they're gone.
A lot of split drop fighting right now. Furious Gaming ended up taking down another player of the Rejects, so Rejects now down to 2. BESIKTAS improvising a new drop, a new split, do get themselves caught against the Xavier and potentially even the likes of Falcon. They're doing like 2 on the northeast of the bridge on the north side and then 2 west of the bridge. So it's a good split if they could get away with it, but it extends a little bit too much into the Xavier's territory, and they're not going to be happy about that. And then with Rejects, they're doing a split, south of boot camp. They drop in the trifecta area, that bridge compound crossing. Then they drop south of boot camp, and then a little bit southeast of boot camp. Problem is, Furious Gaming, they do a wide quarry split. They do 2 players, like, quarry-ish area, and then 2 further west of quarry. And those 2 players, ended up conflicting with the 2 of Rejects. So that's how we're getting all of these little eliminations coming across the board. And Rejects, another player knocked. Rejects down to 1. Yesterday, they had polarizing performances too. I think yesterday they had one really great game. I think a chicken dinner even, And then nowhere to be seen for the rest of the matches. Today, they get a huge chicken. Now they're about to be the first team eliminated.
I'm getting some deja vu. We're getting crazy zones. We're getting Regis with some polarizing performances. It's all coming down to the same pattern here. Yeah. And now, I mean, Justice, rotate. Leave the situation, go hide in the grasses. I mean, there's really no option. And unfortunately, we talk about the time in and time out. We've had a lot of teams going for those fantastic placement points, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, that is fantastic, the fact that they're getting up into those higher placements, but you need those foundational points. You need those eliminations to back that up. I mean, at a stage like PMGC, one or the other is not going to cut it. We need both. We need full throttle running up that overall leaderboard. So it hurts to see this happen for Rejects, but it is Sanhok. We know there's a little bit of craziness. Rejects had that interesting engagement with Furious Gaming, and then just from there on, unfortunately, running into team after team. So we're not really seeing a single team stepping up in terms of the elimination points. It's been relatively, well spread across at least the eliminations from Rejects. So wait and see who's going to be that first team to step on up. Some rotations now needing to come through, as well as we can see the likes of Game Lords right alongside Train to Kill and 4 Angry Men moving on in from that northeastern side. Do you think they're going to be alright? I do see Nongshim RedForce as a straight shot right ahead of 4 Angry Men, and they're kind of sticking around that outskirt almost as if they're waiting for a team to make that rotation.
It's going to come down to just the next shift, I think. I think both teams aren't going to even bother really breaking into the first circle. They're going to be rotating towards that way, but off the next shift is going to determine which way they swing. Something interesting I want to bring up in comparison from week 2, the group of death, and this week is Stalwarts. Godlike Stalwarts, actually, very similar performance like the likes of Rejects. They were polarizing too. I remember day 1 we were talking about, oh, they're doing okay. They were like 5th or something like that. The next day, nowhere to be seen. Very polarizing performances. I'm pretty sure Seven on the desk, if he's listening, he could agree because we were both talking about it. They would go up and then they would go down extremely hard and then nowhere to be seen. They lose players early on. They lose 1, they lose 2. Go down to 2-man, first team down to 2, just like the Rejects. And, well, Godlike Stalwarts ended up being the first place team overall in the group of death. I'm not saying, the Rejects team have the similar caliber or experience to pull off something like that. But, hey, just, you never know. It happened to Godlike Stalwarts, so, yeah, up in the air.
Opportunities always there. We know PUBG Mobile and the likes of RNG is always going to just bring in some interesting performances. I mean, speaking of those interesting performances, Train to Kill now down to 2 as Legend's been knocked, and now that recovery has to happen here. A few rotations means that IHC did at least pick up one of the members there. Train to Kill now clapping back on the likes of Game Lords who made that late rotation, and Train to Kill has been delayed as well. So now we are seeing a little bit of an opportunity as IHC fight Geekay Esports. Almost an immediate elimination for Gaithan. Satan down to a sliver of HP.
Yeah, I think that nade's gonna... Yeah, ooh. Actually shot by a different team there. Alex trying to go for the confirmation as fast as he can. He knew that was... Oh, he got it! Alex jumping over the car. Yeah, Alex jumping over the car with the DBS. He got it. That's that killer instinct that I'm talking about, right? He just knows. He hears the shots coming in from the other side. He knows that knock just went down. He's like, we want this point. Instantly brings out the DVS and runs it and guns it and gets that 1 point. 1 point can make a crucial difference here.
Absolutely, just running in with that DBS action and running in with the vehicles. It is Genesis DOGMA GIDS up here against TEM Entertainment. And now TEM Entertainment, at least the duo of TEM Entertainment, need to step it on up. We have a 1-2 split, at least for the time being, as Baby steps on out to try and delay Genesis DOGMA. But, Geek Fam doing what Geek Fam do best. The third parties are here.
Dang, Geek Fam was just getting into a fight with IHC's fight earlier with the other team that rolled on in. What team was that? It was GK. GK rolled on in down to 1 player. Now Genesis DOGMA here. Oh, that's TEM Entertainment taken out, actually. TEM Entertainment was a team defending in Genesis DOGMA in full force. That's the most aggressive I've seen Genesis DOGMA. It works out for them, at least securing that compound. But Geek's going to have something different to say about that. It's not Geek that picks up the point, though. It's actually IHC from over out top that picks up that one.
No, these third parties are just heating on up. Genesis DOGMA losing
5
another player.
Already.
Oof, it is disgusting, but it is fantastic to pick up these amount of points right off the bat. IHC once again stepping up. And I mean, we talked about that change of roster once again, another change of roster up into the first few games of today. And it seems like IHC have found their groove, at least until Yuhai has anything to say about it.
So many different angles being exposed up there. Geek Fam playing in the ruins area, very split up. This is what playing aggressive looks like when you have 4 players alive and you have the zone and you're safe. We saw game number 1, I think it was Game Lord. I think Seven was saying, I want to see them play more aggressive. They had like barely any eliminations. Sure, they had the zone. They were safe. They could have sat back. Geek Fam, they have the zone. They have 4. They could also sit back, but they're so far spread out on ruins that they're able to third party 2 to 3 fights to pick up scrap points whenever possible. Next zone shifts, it does go up north right into the heart of ruins. It could end around there. It could even go up a little bit to the northeast where the reject player is sitting in a shack, I believe. The last one up for the rejects. Maybe he could squeeze out some placement points if he gets circle blessed long enough.
It's going to be that question that has to come through here. And I like that, just the aggression that we're seeing once again. Geek Fam, one of those teams that we've said have been so confident, those teams that have not been afraid of taking the engagement. So it's good to see the likes of Genesis DOGMA also picking up that pacing a little bit. But we have to see that consistency follow through. We saw with Geek Fam, I mean, in the first couple of games, we didn't have a single movement on our top 3. That last game, our top 3 didn't make a single movement on the overall leaderboard. Now it is an opportunity to climb back in. You can't give any of these teams space to work, or they will close that gap up against you.
Nongshim RedForce here, coming in with
Oh,
3
hello, to your right. Hello?
1v2. RC could do this. Justice, he's got the DBS. He gets another one. The third player, though, from out on top will get the elimination. Good try by the Rejects team. FaZe Ventorez, though. Spot. Oh. Wait. Did Dooms accidentally throw a Molotov instead of a smoke?
I don't know if that was FaZe, maybe.
No, it showed...
I think it was Dooms.
Yeah, it showed Dooms Molotov.
Oh no. Oh no. I mean, Nongshim RedForce just off of the back of a sub as well. I mean, they dropped Satan, brought in the QX. This is not the impact that you were looking for.
Yeah, and also it's just... You mollied your down teammate, which you could have revived, and get back up to 3, and near the center. Man, Nongshim RedForce, it just seems like they've been having so many troubles. Here we have a little car chase happening. You don't see this in Sanhok almost ever. Game Lord with the YOLO full send rotation straight into the hearts. Well, not the heart of ruins, but on the outskirts of ruins. One player will go down. Last player in desperately trying to set off that smoke. Can he get it down in time? Give him some cover. Give him some reprieve. Too many shots from too many different angles. And, man, with IHC's sight train on you, they will not let up. IHC up to 6 eliminations now.
But as if that was enough for Game Lord, Geek Fam also reached in from ruins. They put themselves in a perfect crossfire between IHC and Geek. So regardless of what IHC would have done, Geek Fam would have jumped on in.
Those are 2 teams you do not want to be sandwiched between.
No. Lamborghini, we saw what they did on Miramar. Will they be able to clutch it up against Falcons who just drive on by?
Nice little swing by right there. I like it. I respect it. Falcons. Looking strong. Falcons, man. This team's also been struggling a lot. Looks like they're playing a bit more loose, a bit more confident, and it's working out for now as they pick up those 2 elimination points so far. Next zone shifts. It does come off of the North Island. I think everyone on the North were ready for this shift, so let's see what their plan is. 4 a.m. meanwhile swinging in from the western side. 4 a.m. started all the way on the northeast, so they did a full, complete wraparound. Working out so far, but can they get further?
Ooh.
What a nice shots with the silencer as well. That QBU with the silencer, oh, sounds so nice.
It's deadly. Just tap, tap away, and it's done. But Xavier now, I mean, we had the drive-by from Falcons. That took out Lamborghini. Now, T-Duck out here, the nade. Oh, sliver of HP. You're out of the blue, and they can't even get around. They're just going to go down. No other option. I mean, at this point in time, Falcons have their number, and Xavier will go down with not a lot to show for it, unfortunately, but we'll see what they bring on back. At least 2 eliminations to the tally as Geek Fam move on in, still hunkering down here towards ruins.
Yuhai instantly knowing his backside just got compromised is going to adjust his positioning. Quick heads up play right there. Genesis Dogma will find this shack to play in for now. Geek Fam do want to close in on this, but they're also dealing with Furious Gaming the whole time, and that's a player knocked out of the Geek Fam team. That's just going to slow things down for Geek Fam. They're going to go back and reset as GK Hope comes in, and I think he saw that burning car. I was like, that's taken. Ends up getting taken out by the 4 a.m. team instead. GK, once again, slipping on the leaderboards. Eliminated very early. No placement points. No elimination points.
At the very least for our top 3, you know, GK going out, but we still have Train to Kill, we still have Geek Fam, and we have Furious Gaming, who decided that, you know, pole position is looking real nice right now. Let's just see if we can take out Geek Fam as Genesis Dogma chime in as well. Geek now stuck in between a rock and a literal hard place, as all of the teams in the vicinity are moving in for those potential third parties, just spreading out the damage. Rude down and knocks. Geek Fam snipes, trying to rotate on for that res. Look at this, right behind that tree. And we've seen what these trees have been able to do today, Zute. It's not some good cover to work with.
Yeah. I feel like if Aiden had, or it was a Genesis Dogma player, if he had a little bit more trigger discipline, he could have waited for the next stretch of crossing, which was less trees in between the second and third one, and probably got the knock. But him firing off the shots right there, getting a little trigger happy, will incite that player to drop down smokes, to get the crossover, to get the revive. So Geek Fam will go back up to 3, losing their 4-player strength, which would have been crucial in a match like this coming out of Ruins. They would have had they want full force control. Circle did shift north off of Ruins though, so we'll see the likes of IHC have to make a play, Geek Fam, Furious Gaming, GIDS, and everyone else coming in from the eastern side of things.
Longsham RedForce still in this at least for another second before FaZe Clan move on in. Picking up at least an elimination or 2 or 3 as they move on forward. And now they're going to be coming through from that eastern side rotation. The only other player really in contention for them would have been Train to Kill, but bam, there they are. They are out for the count. So in terms of our top 3, it's only Geek Fam left, up with 5 eliminations, still moving on in from Ruins, right up ahead of Furious Gaming.
4 AM looking strong right now. All of 4 AM still up, coming in from the west. Geek Fam trying to do what they can with 3, and it's working so far. IHC did make that drive over. They find some sort of cover. 1 player knock should be able to get revived. Constantly have to deal with the GD GIDS. Yeah, that shack being taken completely ruins Geek Fam's plans, and now they are getting pieced apart by everyone from every which angle. Geek Fam went from third-partying every team to having every team look at them, taking shots at them. Yeah, from his backside, from his left side, from his right side. Nowhere for Snipes to go.
Snipes about to get sniped as all the teams are moving on in. Furious Gaming still need to get themselves in the zone. Falcons going out at least with 5 eliminations. Here it pops off now as Furious Gaming, they turn it all around up to a IHC at least before Alex steps on in and confirms the entirety of Furious Gaming. But it's not going to stop there. Snipe still somehow as a solo fighting back against the entire mountain that they need to climb here. IHC holding them down, keeping him locked in. Rotations are going to be tough.
Genesis Dogma still alive. 4 AM, controlling the western side very beautifully. They do know Genesis Dogma is down there, and they know it's more than 1 player based on the amount of shots they've heard ringing out. That nade does not connect. They really want to take care of everything around their backside and corners so they don't get spoiled. Will they commit to a full push? FaZe here, taking some shots, and Geek finally gets taken down, and it's by 4 AM of all teams. 4 AM up to 4 eliminations. About to be 5, Svan with that QBU. I think it just got stolen potentially. Yeah, it was BESIKTAS that picked up that.
I am loving what IHC are bringing into this action. 9 eliminations, but they still have to find a very good entryway into the zone. Alex now being caught on out by Genesis Dogma. This is a good amount of energy that we're seeing from them, but they're taking this fight right along the ridgeline away from 4 angry men who seem to have smelt blood. It looks like they're pushing on up. They want that third-party opportunity.
Peeking up and over, they get the finish. They take care of their flanks. Very well done by the 4 AM team. Zayol, last one up for the side of IHC. He can potentially make the run over since Genesis Dogma is taken care of. 4 AM now focused on their front side, no longer concerned about the southern region. 4 AM starting to push into, Vivo Keyd coming into the mix. One of their players gets knocked. I think he went up above the water and went for the knock on Svan, but instantly the support was there. The trade was good.
IHC, they were holding strong. In comes 4 beautiful shots from FaZe Clan as they close that one out. IHC will go down though with those 9 eliminations. 4 angry men holding onto the coastal line here from that western edge of the zone, just confirming Vivo Keyd. So I mean, in terms of what we're looking at in the zone, it's BESIKTAS in center that have been extremely quiet. They haven't been picking up these eliminations or capitalizing off of those third-party opportunities. And now FaZe and Falcons will join our 4 remaining teams in the zone. And it is looking good in terms of the positioning for BESIKTAS, but will they be able to capitalize and pick up the eliminations?
Oh man, Svan with his QBU still. So deadly. Just 1 headshot, 2 headshots, and that player is down and out. It's going to be shaping up to be a beautiful ending. Usually Sanhok is a lot more chaotic, but with the way the layout is, it's going to be a more methodical approach. Of course, BESIKTAS in the dead center in a strong position. But no matter how strong your position is, if you're getting pushed in from multiple sides by multiple teams, it becomes very tricky. FaZe lose one member trying to cross over, making a play. 4 AM, just playing it conservative, playing really well here. FaZe Clan do breach into the compound. It's not fully yet in circle, and they lost one. Now the Falcons trying to do something. Falcons get a nice knock there onto some bomb, but they're traded back, and the blue is pressing in closer on them. 4 AM knows where they should focus now. All 3 players left. Now make that 4 AM. Looking towards the sightlines of Falcons. Ooh. That's another player down. Falcons down to 1, and 4 AM should go for the isolated push here. BESIKTAS is a little bit worried about FaZe Clan. With good reason. FaZe Clan pushing up now. BESIKTAS, can they get the knock? They get one, but one of them go down. FaZe Clan finish out by 4 AM of all teams. 4 AM isn't just only focusing on Falcon. They're focusing on everybody. They're taking names, and it's not just one team's name. It's one team down, 2 team, 3 team. 4 AM looking so strong. BESIKTAS now down to the last 2 players, and 4 AM have a good idea. They get the reknock. They push him for the final swipe, and 4 AM get the chicken dinner. The distance traveled also by this team. The fact that they won this match, starting from the hard northeast, wrapping all the way down to the south, wrapping back down to the southwest, then back up north, all the way into ruins. Those are some
gorgeous finish.
Yeah, those are some rotations if I've ever seen them. We often say Sanhok is not a game of rotations. Well, if anyone could prove that wrong, 4 AM just pretty much won that game off of beautiful rotations, isolating their backside every time, striking in at the most optimal positions that set them up for good engagements as well. I don't think they were at any point at the chances of being third party. They always had some sort of ridge to work with, and it's just map knowledge and rotations coming in for this Sanhok match for 4 AM to get a big, big chicken dinner.
4 AM making that showing, making that statement once again, bringing in a beautiful amount of eliminations. You can see it's so well spread up. It's only really WWX moving on in with the better eliminations alongside Qingsheng. So it was a very good team effort, I would say, bringing in such a beautiful showing, bringing in that winner chicken dinner. 4 AM. I mean, in terms of the distance traveled, they did have to work. As you mentioned, look at that, 11,000 meters worth of distance traveled, right alongside FALCONS, actually, who similar had that approach into that final moment, but just couldn't quite find the angle to work with.
11,000 on a map of Sanhok, by the way. Sanhok. It's a small map. If you could travel 11,000 on Sanhok, that really does say something. But man, what says even more is the fact that 4 AM, well, I mean, they're once again back with a strong chicken dinner. Can they continue?
And the 4 angry men just got angrier. 30 total points after being a little bit quiet here for a little bit here in Group Yellow. Finally getting another chicken dinner once again. And then Team Falcons finally showing up and getting 16 points on the board here, 7.
What impressed me the most about 4 Angry Men was the rotation. They were able to wrap around from the south and bring it all the way to the west. They were willing to take some damage from the blue zone, but it ended up working out for them because they were able to put themselves in such a great position next to that bridge on the west. I love to see those plays and love the bounce back too. I mean, this team, Glitter, they really didn't perform that well yesterday in the Sanhok. They ended up, I think, with a 12th place finish and 0 eliminations.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons, not this specific map per se, but this was one of the reasons we called about the top of the show, okay? Now, we get to look at the top performers here, and it's going to be half of 4 a.m. as first and second place. IHC making a performance, and GEEK, we called GEEK out, wanted to see them have a little bit of a resurgence, and they're bringing it back, but I mean, okay. Across the board, we've got 5 elims and 5 elims on Ching Chen and WWX combined. Over 1k damage though, but almost equal team contribution. And we wanted this. We were waiting for this. We knew they were capable of it. And like you said, Sanhok was a map where they struggled. This is good. Figuring out Sanhok now with the new zone and everything, this could be a huge, huge gain for them.
I just love that rotation.
Absolutely.
I can't get over it.
Dude, me neither. I mean, when you're able to make a play like that, you know it's got to hype the squad up, especially after your team hasn't been performing the way that they've been expected, you know? So to be able to pull something like that out right when it's needed, that's that clutch factor. And you know what? One team that we talked about a little bit earlier, Seven, was Rejects, right? They had a good pop-off performance here. So I think it's time we talk to one of the players, and let's go ahead and move on over to an interview with the excellent Tash Bunny.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the 2022 PUBG Mobile Global Championship League stage Yellow Group. And we're halfway through the night already, but before we continue, let's have a chat with the team who opened the day with a chicken dinner, Reject from Japan. And with me, I have Reiji Oko. Okay, you got a little bit embarrassed there. Hi Reiji, how are you?
Hi, hello. I'm fine.
Oh, genki desu ka? That's how you say how are you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I have a question for you. My first question for you is, how do you think your team's form today? Are you confident on getting the top 3 in the total ranking?
はい、今日の出来具合を見た感じで、トップ3に入れるかのちょっと感想いただきたいです。
入れます。
I think I can get into top 3.
Okay, he thinks he can get into top 3. So what do you think is the hardest thing that you have to do in order to get into top 3?
Okay. 第3位トップ3位に入るようにするには何が一番大変だと思いますか？
生き残ってポイントを取ることです。
For he said that to survive and to earn the point will be the very difficult part for him.
All right, surviving and getting points. Of course, you have to talk about that sweet spot. But for now, my last question for you is, you won the winner-winner chicken dinner on the second match for today, but you were quickly eliminated on the third match. So does this unstable result affect your mood, and how will you guys adjust next?
はい、2回目の試合では、結構いいスコアを取ったと思うんですけども、3回目の試合ですぐに負けてしまったと思うんですけど、その中でSorry, what was the question?
Sorry, so it's you got this winner-winner chicken dinner on the second match for today, but you were quickly eliminated on the third match. So does this unstable result affect your mood, and how are you guys will be adjusting?
そうですね。2回目の試合では結構トップの方に入ったと思うんですけど、3回目ではすぐに負けてしまったと思うんですけど、それはどのように今の結果を影響するかっていうのと、どのようにしてそれを回復するかをお聞きしたいです。
まあ運が悪かっただけなのであんまり気にしてないです。
Okay. So he said it was a bad luck. It was just a bad luck, so he don't actually care. Yeah.
Oh, bad luck and he doesn't care. At least he's going to go GG, go next. I'm very excited about that. Now we're going to be going into the fourth match of the night. How do you say goodbye in Japanese?
Goodbye を日本語で何て言いますか？
Sayonara, everyone, and we'll see you guys back on the desk.
Sayonara. Well, hello, dude. Welcome back, everybody, here. What a great interview right there. What was your real takeaway from that one, Seven?
I love that he said he didn't care and he just tossed it out to bad luck. I appreciate that, and you know what? It is bad luck because earlier they had some amazing luck in Miramar when they were able to put up all those eliminations in the chicken dinner.
True.
Yeah, I mean, hey. And that's a good way to kind of get over all the issues with your team, right? Just say, hey, it's just bad luck, baby. You know, it's good luck.
Happens.
Our hotel partner, right? Our hotel partner here for Pmgc, Pullman, Kuala Lumpur, Banksar. Our world is your playground right there. And yeah, it does happen, Seven. Sometimes you just gotta brush it off. Say, hey, dude, you know what? It happens. And you know what? Let's talk about Prime Gaming, of course, our platinum sponsor for PMGC. Guys, they've got a whole bunch of great in-game content, Prime benefits, as well as you can get some PUBG Mobile in-game items. So go ahead and check out Prime Gaming today. Alrighty then. So, Glitter, I think it's time we take a look at the overall rankings, baby. Let's see who is on top of this thing. It's Geek Fam still. But look, we are definitely seeing some changes. 4 Angry Men now in 3rd place.
That's a big jump up for them. I'm glad that we were able to take a look at this because that's a huge jump up for 4 Angry Men getting themselves in assaults. I mean, still very close now, but now that they're at 90, GK is down at 89, Reject at 85. That top 8 is slowly really shrinking down as far as any sort of like cushion goes with those points. So I think it's going to be become a really close race. But now Vivo Keyd is going to be dropping down. And on the second page, 7, TEM not looking so great.
TEM is not looking so great. Furious Gaming is actually not looking so great. Furious Gaming is starting to give me vibes of Evos from last week when they were just not taking advantage of them actually being within the top 11, and then everybody was able to catch up, and that's exactly what everything is currently happening. I mean, the gap right now between those teams is really not that much. One game, and we're going to be seeing a lot of switches there.
Yeah, and now's the time to do it, especially before we go into day 3. And I'm just hoping we don't see, GK act like HVVP from last week as well. Starting off strong and falling off towards the end. But hey, you know what? Still a lot of PUBG Mobile left to be played here. We got another match coming right up, and it's time to take a look at y'all's teams to watch. So 7, of course, you got Geek Fam on there. They're doing great, but could be doing better. Am I right or wrong?
100%. They could be doing better. I'm actually going to be looking at 4 Angry Men because they didn't perform that well in the second half of the day, especially when it came to Erangel. We saw how they were able to turn it around just now in Sanhok. They didn't do so well yesterday. Today, they won. What is 4 Angry Men going to be bringing for us here in the next Erangels? And then for TEM, I mean, we talked about it. This team currently sitting in 13th place. I'm pretty sure not where they want to be. They want to be able to close that gap a little bit more. And why not take advantage of it? And I know you have TEM as well on your teams to watch, Glitter.
Yeah, I want to see a bounce back from them. We saw clearly like these moments where they're very capable of having some solid performances. They're just not on the consistent side today so far, but also I really like what we're seeing out of FaZe. I feel like they started off the day a little bit quiet, a little bit slow, but they've really picked up their aggression. They've picked up their position and their rotations. I want to see what they can do now in the second half. Back on Erangel and see if they can improve from the first time around.
FaZe up! FaZe up! Let's see who's going to be up here in this next match, everybody. It's about that time. Let's take it on over to our casters.
4 AM back in the leading for the top 3. They just barely make it in though. GK has been slipping quite a bit. 3 performances so far, not up to par with their day 1. Day 1 to day 2, things can change up a lot, and we're seeing that now.
We talked about it. Don't give these teams an inch. They will take you for a mile. 4 AM now finally catching up, closing that gap, getting closer and closer to the top spots. And they don't seem to be stopping anytime soon. But like our analyst mentioned, that second half of yesterday didn't quite look like the performance we were expecting. And there's a little bit of a danger for that to happen once again. But I am loving the fact that we are seeing a few more names jumping up to the fray. We're talking about more teams in contention for those top spots.
Players definitely warmed up by now. 3 matches in. I love the shots of the player cams because we could see a similar mood setting across all of them, regardless of where they are in the leaderboards. Everyone's really focused right now. Everyone's really serious. I remember like day 1 before the matches started, the player cams, players were like laughing, having a good time, enjoying themselves, relaxing. But now it's like, it's serious mode. Like, they've been practicing and training all year for this moment. And this is not your standard grind either. All the players here, most likely, play the game for fun too. So even after practice and after training, after scrims, they're probably playing the game just for fun too. So they've been playing this game 24/7 almost, leading up to this moment. And this is where they get to display it for the entire world to watch. As we come into game number 4, back onto Erangel. This playing path a little bit skewed to the north. We might see something interesting happen as far as teams, dropping to the southwest goes. Might have some rotation skirmishes, when they fight for those vehicles. But besides that, we should be heading into a regular game. I mean, I feel like Erangel typically doesn't really promote hot drops, even with playing paths being a little bit skewed.
Yeah, there's a few potentials out there, but again, just based off the first Erangel that we had, that pacing that these teams brought in, they weren't looking for those hot drops. If there was by chance a potential for the hot drop, which what we saw there over towards the Snipoliana, the teams would pull back. They didn't want to immediately jump into that engagement. They wanted to give themselves so much time to work with and bring their strategies to their best potential. I mean, what did we have? Like 14 minutes before we finally saw that first elimination, before we finally saw some action. And now with that centered zone, we are giving these teams the best possible opportunity to bring forth their best performances, to bring forth what they are planning to showcase and how they might make those final jumps up into the top slots of the overall standings.
No crazy circles this time around, at least in terms of the first circle. Might see some crazy shifts, but besides that, it's going to be a pretty standard game of Erangel. Nothing like the Miramar one we had. Boy.
No.
By the way, if you guys are just tuning in or you missed the Miramar match, it was game number 2, right? You guys might want to just rewind back real quick. Game number 2, just take a look at where that circle ended. I'll give you a hint if you're too lazy. Los Higos, south of Los Higos. As we do get a knock between Vivo Keyd and IHC. IHC actually picking up in a first blood. So this isn't a full out hot drop, but both teams try to stretch as far as they can from the plane path to South George Pole. And one player of Vivo Keyd did not make it to the other side of the road. And Zayol actually taking quite a bit of damage. Look at his helmet and vest. Came down to a very close isolated 1v1. So Zayol just getting the better of that, which I don't know. I see that as 2 different ways. He had teammates around him, could have isolated and did a 2v1. Instead, he did a 1v1 and almost lost just based on the armor damage. So a little bit risky, but hey, it's IHC. If they're feeling confident, if they're feeling it, I mean, go for it. As Divine, getting caught out. There's those rotation skirmishes I was talking about. Gamelord setting up a nice little trap onto Divine there.
I mean, similar to what we saw on Sanhok, however, like these players are getting isolated. These players are alone. I mean, taking Divine, that late rotation on up, obviously trying to, recoup with the rest of their squad, but as a result, getting caught out and alone and really no opportunity for Rejects to do anything about it. So hopefully they'll regroup, keep that tight, keep that tight-knit, pattern that we saw on Erangel, the first Erangel of the day, so that we can bring forth the longevity of these teams. I mean, Glitter mentioned it. We were talking about TEM Entertainment. They've shown those brilliant moments today. They've shown those glimmers of hope, but we need more, and arguably we want more from all of these teams. We want to see them climbing to the top of heights that never managed to reach before.
Definitely agree. We're 3 games in, and one of my questions was Geek Fam's consistency, right? Playing from the edge and fighting their way in. That Miramar game, I'll toss out the window. Like, that one...
It doesn't count. It's not a map.
Yeah, we'll give them a hard pass. That Sanhok, they did pretty well. They stuck true to fighting their way in. Just ended up getting crossfired by too many teams. It happens sometimes. They picked up quite a few eliminations in Game 1.
Yeah.
They third-partied 2 teams like 2 to 3 times and finally got third-party themselves. Sometimes it happens. I think Geek Fam, as far as playstyle consistency goes, they're sticking true to that style. And hey, they've managed to hold first place. Less could be said of GK, which not as consistent as Geek Fam. So I think Geek Fam, they just need one of those zone shifts where, I mean, it goes off of them, but it's in a nicer way for them to manage isolated 4v4s or just third parties where they don't get third party themselves. And I think we'll see Geek Fam spring back up in a bigger lead, maybe with this game, maybe with the next game, but they're looking good so far. They just need that one decent game to really, give them a little bit of a bolster.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree with that. I mean, Train to Kill, I also just want to say that they've brought in that consistency today. You know, it hasn't been ridiculous games from them. It hasn't been, you know, absolutely crazy performances, but it's been that somewhat consistent. I mean, they started the day off with, what, 65 points? Now heading on that one away from the triple-digit marker, getting very close to that pole position, and if they keep up that performance, we could be actually seeing them taking pole position, potentially. That is before we consider the looming threat of 4 angry men and the pacing that they've been bringing in. And once again, if they can keep that consistent, I mean, it's been the same question for Geek Fam. If Geek Fam can keep up that dominance consistently throughout this week, then yes, we're talking about Geek Fam going all the way, but it's a hard pressured game. Again, I mean, I would say yes, Geek Fam have been consistent, but the rest of the teams, they've stepped up. They have stepped up to catch up to that pole position.
We're about 6 minutes in now. Only one casualty in South George. That on to the backs of Vivo Keyd against IHC. Few teams rotating in. We don't see as many teams rotating in early because this, you know, this zone is so ambiguous almost. Being the center of Erangel. No real clear distinctions in terms of, you know, territory. The first Erangel game, we had a very eastern zone, right? So we immediately saw a lot of teams take the high ground of South Prison. Here, just smack in the middle. I mean, there's a high ground smack in the middle, but could easily go down to the low ground on the south or the north or dip over to the east or even the west. So it's like teams are going to take this one a little bit slower, even in terms of rotations, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I mean, especially with the fact that we've got so many teams already clustered into the center zone, they need to be careful of those rotations, especially the pathings that they're going to be taking. A lot of teams, as we can see, rejects sitting up in the buildings, having those, you know, those scopes out, waiting for some of those rotations just to give a few welcoming packages along the way. This is how they get those foundational points, and this is a prime opportunity to do exactly that. Some of the first teams who have dropped center, they've looted, and now they're set up, and they're waiting for those opportunities that are looming in around the corners.
I love the way 4AM scouted that compound, by the way. That compound usually a very popular one. Hard to tell if there's anybody there. You can hide your vehicles. But 4AM pulled up on the very north side of Rozhok. Using that vantage point, they had one person cover, scout out for vehicles, scout out for movement, didn't see anything, and they'll slide right in quite easily and comfortably. Not super center of circle, so probably why it's not taken, but that's how you make progress into these matches. Good scouting, good rotation pathing, and you won't lose any players, and you'll keep all 4 up. 62 players up. Going into the next circle shift. Will this one give a more distinction on what kind of game we might be seeing? Does go hard down to the south, so now it's pretty much divided on the high ground and the low ground. Now teams will definitely prefer one or the other. There's some very strong compounds on the low ground that's more central, that if you take it now, you might be heavily rewarded for it. So we might see some clashes there in this new circle.
Potential here for Pachinki and Farm. We had a request for a Pachinki zone on Erangel yesterday. It's a little late. Maybe it might happen today. Maybe we might finally get those answers. But these rotations with that center clash that we saw with the teams, 4 angry men right alongside D Xavier, who just seemed to be losing out on the luck, as we were talking about in that interview, just not having the opportunities. But will they have the same, you know, just momentum, the mentality against this opportunity like Rejects have, saying, well, it's RNG, it's luck. Sometimes those rotations come through. Will they be looking deeper and finding out what they can do differently to prevent that moving on into a map like this?
4AM with a very far rotation will play on the southwest side of the center. That compound's a strong compound as a launching off point, though, because they will have kind of control of the ridge to scout further in. As Geek Fam getting into fight with Vivo Keyd. He's solo and isolated, actually deciding to challenge really quickly. He could have gone down early there before the rest of his team could get there, but he applies damn rude, does apply the pressure onto Vivo Keyd, essentially slowing it down, giving him time for his teammates to get there, and just in the nick of time, his teammates will get the trade. Diego swings out wide, will get one, potentially almost getting the second one. It's getting a little bit dicey for Geek Fam here. They might want to commit another player down here to help but that will essentially give up the high ground for them, and they are getting third party. They do have all 4 players down here, actually. Will there be a third party? Diego, last one up for the team. He gets another one. The 2-piece, one more to make it the 3-piece, and that will be a full squad wipe onto the side of Geek Fam. Yuhai, the last player up. Previous team, BTR, we've heard in his interview, he's looking forward to challenge BTR, his old team, and Yuhai showing why he got picked up by Geek Fam, showing his prowess. This Yuhai player, by the way, since his debut, has been making a lot of splashes and waves. And that was like about 2 years ago. So good to see him progressing with that nice drop shot, that nice clutch, getting the full entire reset onto 4 players of Geek Fam. That is huge.
Rejects moving on in with that. We saw at least one extra knock coming through from the side of Rejects onto Geek Fam. And now IHC keeping their eyes peeled on exactly that position. Hopefully closing the gap. We can see FALCONS and Train to Kill in the meantime finding one another. This is happening over towards that northern side of the zone. Train to Kill wanting to move on into the zone, wanting to get good position, but
wow.
will invest just a tiny bit into this engagement. However, with that shift now, this adds that timer into this engagement. This adds that extra pressure point because they want to get a shift up into that northern side. And then whichever team makes it will be the controlling team of that northern edge.
No teams playing the Potato Hill area. That is crazy. I think teams were having PTSD of the southern shifts on Miramar. So when they saw that southern circle,
yes,
everyone was like, okay, we're playing on the south side of this central circle. We're not messing around anymore. Yeah, but that's a hard shift back up north, so a lot of open territory. Which team's going to be able to scout it out effectively to know the strongest position on that Potato Hill? Pretty much wide open.
Might be Furious Gaming, as you can see Trigger making that rotation. In the meanwhile, Xavier picking up a good amount of damage, now picking up those 2 eliminations, so a little bit more energy coming through from them, and this can be huge. We've been waiting to see something coming through from Xavier. As a former team making it to the PMG Grand Finals, we expect that performance. We expect this from 4 Angry Men, finding Ventora's Tony K down to half, as 4AM will just not let up the pressure. It is the Valley of Doom and Death if anyone should find themselves here.
FaZe forced to rotate into the trenches, being neighbors to also a banged up Rejects team. Rejects team down to 2. Last game, he called it bad luck. I could say it's a little bit of bad luck and more so ill preparation. This time around, down to 2 players again. Can't always call it bad luck. There's some mistakes to be learned from here, as they are gonna hope they get circle blessed there. They're pretty central, a little bit west of the center. 4AM is actually dead center of the new circle, playing that valley position. Very nice find for 4AM. I like this, the way 4AM has been playing Erangel. They will go for those hard rotations, those calculated risk rotations. Previously, I've always recalled 4AM like 2-3 years ago. Their style was always, play it slow, edge in, fight their way in. But this new style of being able to flex that, go for rotations or fight their way in when they have to, has been proving to work out for them pretty well.
I like it. Again, those gambles that they're able to take, but then with that added information, they don't just rush into the opportunity. Like you said, it's calculated. They get that information, they get that scouting party, they know exactly where those teams will be rotating in, and then they make use of an area, of a vicinity and territory like this one. Any team that unfortunately might find themselves there, it is going to be a hard run. Furious Gaming now moving on in from that Potato Hill will be having a beautiful line of sight down towards 4AM, just looking for a couple of shots, looking for those potential connections. And that zone is going to provide them extra time to do so. 4AM Furious Gaming loving their positions into this one.
Yeah, I really like the way this circle is in general. It's a very small circle, but there's so much dynamics going on here. You have the high ground of Potato Hill, this deep gully dip by 4AM that's dead center, the farm fields to the west, and the few scattered compounds that are left in zone here that all have a strong position to have teams work their way in to any subsequent circle shift. So a lot of teams with a good chance to pick up points and potentially even still close out a chicken dinner. It all comes down to execution at this point for each irrespective team in their positions.
It's going to be an interesting one. That is absolutely for sure. Just that, as you said, the dynamic that we have in the territory available is going to mean these teams are going to have some tough choices up ahead of them. Geek Fam giving a bit of a welcoming gift here to Game Lords as they immediately take that rotation hard to the west. Again, this is a rotation they need to make into zone. Both of these teams fighting on the outskirts as slowly but surely we will see that pressure forcing them into the chaos. But Geek just applying the pressure. Oh, TEM Entertainment, they found Genesis Dogma. And look at the numbers that they're working with.
It's a 4v4, which could easily break into a third party, especially whenever Geek Fam is involved. But Geek Fam, they're going to go for a rotation instead to look for what to play in. And oh no, the bunker trenches. Or not the bunker trenches, just the oh, Reiji. A little bit of bad luck there, potentially. Not getting that underhand tossed over the top. And oh, Reiji with a nice shot with the UMP peeking out over the top. Gets one knock. Forced to fall back because there's a lot of teams everywhere with sight lines that could third party this. Yeah, he's going to use the util instead. Good job. It's actually FaZe using the util. Reiji will eat the nade instead. The rest of Geek Fam going to start funneling in here. Rejects down to 1. Throws down the smoke. Should be able to get that revive. But meanwhile, look at that battle ensue on the high ground, the hilltops between TEM Entertainment, Genesis Dogma, and Game Lord. That is 3 teams fighting. TEM Entertainment is out. Now it's down to the 2 teams. I'm surprised Geek Fam wasn't the one staying up there deciding third party everything. They made the choice to go downhill into the trenches, and they still have 3 up and still making progress. Another good nade onto Reiji.
That was all thanks to Game Lord. We're seeing that Hunter instinct coming through now, that aggression that we've been lacking, and Geek Fam somehow turning the tide onto Rejects. That is them completely eliminated. Back into the storyline here with Game Lord. They did so well up against TEM Entertainment, but there was that looming threat of Genesis Dogma. Victor finding that nade onto Booms is going to allow them that extra space as they try. And they try to make that flanking opportunity, but Genesis are holding on to every vicinity, every angle, every line of sight they have on lockdown. Now it is Victor up against, trying to straggle back, trying to give that buffer zone. They need that time to recoup.
Yeah, Game Lord looking like they were the aggressors, all of a sudden now being aggressed on, down to 1 member. He's going to have to go somewhere, find some place to play from. As GK, this team has been awfully quiet today. Looking good on the initial defense against BESIKTAS. BESIKTAS pushing in with the 4-man team, instantly cut down to 2. Now getting shot in the back by, I think that was still the GK team getting an angle there. Now BESIKTAS down to 1. This should be easy cleanup, easy finish. GK showing us why they were first place yesterday. Clinical defense right there, picking up the 4 BESIKTAS without having a single player even knocked.
I love that you mentioned that. Exactly that. They didn't drop a single player. Even the HP bars in general, it looks like they just brushed off a couple of those bullets like it was nothing. And that's great because they have a heavy road ahead of them. That zone has shifted towards that western side, just slightly anchoring towards the north, which means that rotation will need to come through. Nongshim RedForce is towards the east, and right up ahead of them, we can see the likes of 4 Angry Men and the Valley of Doom and Death that they have been planning. But now, a little bit of a distraction here. We've got a few rotations in. We've got GK Esports moving in. We've got Nongshim RedForce as well. So 4 Angry Men will have quite a lot ahead of them quite soon.
4 AM with the prone. Nice spray down. Meanwhile, on the northeast side, they have the FALCONS and Train to Kill trying to get the high ground. Furious Gaming sitting comfortably, able to just keep both teams back. Satan does go down, gets confirmed. As GK, they crash in. They get a run over for the opening. But GK, not enough members left alive to fully commit to this. We'll let 4 AM get the reset unless if Genesis Dogma GIDS decides to get a nasty third-party timing in here. Looks like they're thinking about it. They're getting closer. They're not quick to pull the trigger, though, and not quick enough as Ching Chen, providing the sightlines, providing the cover from this exact potential push, will shut it down.
I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know where, but somehow, some way, 4 Angry Men have turned this one around for the time being. Genesis is now trying to make that flanking opportunity right alongside Train to Kill. We can see all of the surrounding teams now filtering in, filtering all of that damage center. as King Shen might be in some danger here. Genesis Dogma trying everything to try turn this battle around and get a good position in zone. Meanwhile, Falcons in that rotation up against Furious Gaming. It seems to be all down to Milos right now, holding the ridgeline, waiting and trying to stay alive for the likes of Furious Gaming before the rotations move on in.
I love the aggression out of the Falcons. This is a team that has the experience. I don't think they've had the confidence so far yesterday and today, but you see it here. They're coming out in spades right now, taking